Chapter 490. Qin Wentian thought back to the skeleton in his bloodline. However, other than that skeleton there was nothing else in the surroundings. For such a legendary character to die here, he must have experienced a heaven-shaking, earth-shattering battle. For the defeated, how could the treasures on his body be preserved? Not all experts would leave behind an inheritance before they died. Maybe there were only skeletons left behind. As for the birth of the celestial constellation tree, it was purely because the bloodline of that expert was too powerful. After countless years, the celestial constellation fruits were born. Xiaoyu naturally knew how tyrannical the demonic beast was. He should already be surprised that Qin Wentian could survive. But now that he said such a sentence, it undoubtedly caused the gazes of the crowd to shift to Qin Wentian. This way, the number of gazes on the celestial constellation tree would lessen. Brother Qin was pursued by that demonic beast. How could he have obtained anything in such a short period of time? Xiaoyu, aren't your words a little too venomous? Ji Shui stared at Xiaoyu, her countenance filled with rage. Earlier, if it wasn't for Qin Wentian drawing the demonic beast away, it would be hard for them to escape death. Now that Qin Wentian crawled out from the rubble, regardless of how he managed to escape, it was clear that he wasn't in a good state. He must have experienced an intense battle. According to Xiaoyu's promise, Qin Wentian would receive a portion of the treasures they discovered. But now, leaving aside the matter of splitting the treasures, this Xiaoyu actually directly placed Qin Wentian in such a dire situation. I'm just casually asking. In any case, there were only two paths earlier. The path we took just so happened to lead us to this ancient tree. If Brother Qin took the path, it wouldn't be surprising if he had some good fortune. Xiaoyu laughed. Shut up. Su Feng coldly snorted, angrily rebuking Xiaoyu. His long spear gleamed with sharpness as he pointed it at Xiaoyu. I'm ashamed to be associated with you. Brother Su Feng, don't be so impudent just because I'm polite to you. You're merely an outer disciple of the Qinghua mountain. It's not difficult for me to obtain this identity. Xiaoyu's eyes flickered with a cold light. His words were the truth. Given Xiaoyu's strength, he too had the chance to become an outer disciple of the Qinghua mountains. It was just that the ecliptic sect Xiaoyu was from was a power within the Shanqing city, and it belonged to the Granshang Empire. The relationship between the Granshang Empire and the Qinghua mountain wasn't that friendly. In the Granshang Empire, the Qinghua mountain was clearly stronger. Not only that, other than these two major powers, there were many other powers they could choose from. Hence, many of the geniuses weren't in a hurry to make their choice. There's no need to fight anymore. Once we kill this man, we'll know whether or not he has obtained the inheritance of the utmost powerful being. A cold voice rang out. The person who spoke was none other than Yin Ting from the Yin clan. He already knew that Qin Wentian was the one who had humiliated Yin Cheng before. He had already given the order to kill Qin Wentian, and it was an accident that Qin Wentian didn't die. But now that Qin Wentian appeared here, there was no other choice but to die. Ji Shui's silhouette flickered as she appeared beside Qin Wentian. She stared at the crowd. Brother Qin and I are allies. If someone dares to act against him, I naturally won't stand idly by the side. The long spear in Su Feng's hand spun slightly as he stared in the direction of Yin Ting. This slight movement of his indicated his attitude, causing everyone to be taken aback. I owe my life to him. A cold light flickered in Su Feng's eyes. Regardless of the reason why Qin Wentian lured the crimson-eyed demonic beast away, Qin Wentian had still saved his life. I won't help either side. Lung Tu stated his attitude. Wanting him to help Qin Wentian, he couldn't do it. But wanting him to kick Qin Wentian when he was down, he wasn't so despicable. He heard that Qin Wentian had offended Shangyu, Jin Zhan and Yin Cheng. It would be hard for Qin Wentian to escape death. Yin Ting glanced at Xiaoyu when he heard Lung Tu's words. Xiaoyu's attention didn't seem to be entirely focused on Qin Wentian. This caused Yin Ting to have a rough guess in his heart. Busy. A raging wind gusted as the silence was broken. Feng Yunhe from the Wind Rock aristocrat clan soared up into the skies, aiming for the constellation fruits in the center of the celestial constellation tree. Humph, Shang-Chi coldly snorted. His silhouette flickered as he transformed into a beam of light, shooting towards the constellation fruits. Upon seeing this scene, the crowd couldn't be bothered with Qin Wentian any longer. They all dashed towards the celestial constellation tree, especially when they saw Xiaoyu and Lung Tu doing the same thing. They were even more certain that Qin Wentian didn't obtain anything. If not, how could these people be so calm as to spare him? Regardless of whether or not there were any treasures, they could temporarily put it aside. Right now, the most important thing was to fight for the constellation fruits. The constellation fruits on the celestial constellation tree were of different colors. The one on the lowest layer was an earthen yellow in color, similar to the great earth fruits. When the crowd neared it, they all halted as a terrifying pressure bore down on them, causing them to have no way to advance any further. Naturally, there were also those who directly moved towards the other layers of constellation fruits. However, they all met with different kinds of obstructions. For example, when they neared the blood-colored constellation fruits, they instantly felt their blood flowing uncontrollably, as though their bodies were about to explode. In fact, if they advanced any further, their bodies would bleed profusely. It was an extremely miserable sight. The celestial constellation tree was birthed from the bloodline of a legendary expert. The constellation fruits it bore contained a terrifying will of mandates. How could it be so easy to obtain them? This was also the reason why they didn't act earlier. If they could pluck the constellation fruits in an instant, these people wouldn't even need to face off against each other. They would have directly acted. Let's go. Su Feng glanced at Ji Shui. Wielding his long spear, he directly flew towards the celestial constellation tree. Ji Shui glanced at Qin Wentian. Brother Qin, it's best if you leave first. Don't participate in the contest for the constellation fruits. After speaking, she also soared up into the air. From her point of view, if Qin Wentian continued to stay here, it would be extremely dangerous. He might even be killed. The experts from the 9 transcendent powers all acted at the same time. For a period of time, the entire celestial constellation tree was filled with silhouettes. Qin Wentian's perception gushed out, sensing the will of mandates contained within the constellation fruits. The earthen yellow constellation fruits should contain the will of mandate of great earth. The blood-red constellation fruits should contain the will of mandate of blood. Other than that, there were also constellation fruits that contained demonic energy, spatial energy, and metal energy. The constellation fruits on the highest level were all crimson in color. When he released his perception, Qin Wentian's heart pounded wildly, just like when he faced the crimson-eyed demonic beast. The crimson-eyed demonic beast was born from the power of its bloodline. Hence, its body contained many extraordinary powers. It was just that it couldn't unleash them. The celestial constellation tree was like a mountain spiraling in the air. It was separated into 6 levels, and each level bore different fruits. However, the fruits on each level weren't so easy to pluck. At this moment, the expert who wanted to pluck the constellation fruits on the highest level actually fell headfirst from the tree. Evidently, he had already died. This caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble. Even plucking the fruits could result in death. Qin Wentian rubbed Little Rascal's head as he spoke in a low voice. Help me pluck those fruits with the will of mandate of demons. Little Rascal's silhouette flickered as it soared through the air, directly dashing towards the constellation fruits containing the will of demons. The blood in Qin Wentian's body seethed as a fearsome demonic qi gushed forth from him. His entire body was enveloped by a fearsome blood qi as the aura he exuded surged up at an insane rate. Inclining his head, Qin Wentian stared at the celestial constellation tree as his blood qi churned wildly, breaking through the limits of his cultivation base. Qin Wentian's silhouette soared up into the air, directly landing on a tree branch on the first level as he walked towards one of the fruits. Yinting, Xiaoyu, Jinyan, the 3 heavens chosen were all on this level. Other than them, there were also several powerful heavenly dipper sovereigns present. Qin Wentian walked up. Scram! Yinting blasted out with his palms, as a gigantic palm imprint of lightning imbued with a heavy pressure akin to a gigantic piece of land sweeping downwards, suppressing Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian lifted his palms as demonic qi churned wildly. His divine energy howled as he punched out, directly shattering the thunderous palm imprint. Stepping out, Qin Wentian used his tyrannical strength to forcibly endure the pressure from the constellation fruits. He was 1 step closer to the constellation fruits, and he only needed 5 more steps before he could obtain them. However, Yinting, Xiaoyu and Jinyan were only 4 steps away, even closer than him. Beside Qin Wentian, there were a few other experts who were only 5 steps away. When they saw Qin Wentian walking over, their eyes all flickered with a cold light. "Since you helped me once, Scram." Xieyu's gaze swept over as he stared at Qin Wentian. 9 arms manifested from his body, resembling a monster. Jin Yen was a heavens chosen from the Golden Fire aristocrat clan. Before this, because Jin Zhan was defeated by Qin Wentian, he wanted to teach Qin Wentian a lesson. Yet now, Qin Wentian actually dared to come here to vie for the constellation fruits? His finger flickered with terrifying golden flames as he released his astral nova, causing the golden flames to transform into streams of light that flowed towards the tip of his finger. Jin Yan's finger pressed down in the direction of Qin Wentian as the golden flames shot towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's palms trembled as a gigantic palm imprint slammed towards the golden flames. However, he discovered that the golden flames seemed to have transformed into illusory flames. The palm imprint directly penetrated through them as though they didn't exist, continuing to pierce towards Qin Wentian. Puchi! The golden flames directly entered Qin Wentian's fist as a surge of destructive energy abruptly ravaged Qin Wentian's arm, incinerating everything within it. Boom! Waves of terrifying energy gushed into his arm, extinguishing the flames. These flames could transform into illusory objects that didn't exist. Their attacks were formless and formless. If one wasn't careful, they would be struck by it. However, the destructive power of the flames was comparatively weaker, and was easily erased by the energy within Qin Wentian's body. Despite that, his arm was still charred. Stepping forth, Qin Wentian felt the terrifying pressure bearing down on him. He was only 4 steps away from the earthen yellow constellation fruits. "You don't know the immensity of death." Yinting coldly snorted. An even greater surge of energy gushed forth from his body as bolts of lightning blasted downwards, illuminating his entire body. He was like a god of thunder staring disdainfully at Qin Wentian, exuding an unparalleled sense of imposingness. Xieyu's countenance was ice-cold as well. His 9 arms emitted roaring sounds at the same time, targeting Qin Wentian. However, at this moment, Qin Wentian acted as though he didn't see it. His gaze was focused on the area in front of him as he coldly stated, "With me, Qin Wentian, there's no share of the constellation fruits here." After speaking, he disregarded everything, disregarding the threat of his opponent's attacks, disregarding everything, taking another step forward. Chapter 491. The constellation fruits that contained the mandate of Great Earth emanated a terrifying pressure, crushing down on every part of one's body. A formless barrier formed in the air, making it extremely difficult to approach. Qin Wentian was proficient in the mandate of force. His mandate of force was similar to the mandate of Great Earth, and right now, his bloodline power surged as his mandate of demons erupted forth. Hence, he was only 3 steps away from plucking the constellation fruits. However, the 3 experts around him were none other than the heaven chosen of the 3 transcendent powers. Jin Yen, an outstanding character from the Jin Yen aristocrat clan. Yinting, a heaven chosen of the Yin clan. Xieyu, a heaven chosen of the ecliptic sect. With these 3 present, how could they allow Qin Wentian to obtain the constellation fruits? Especially when Qin Wentian was so arrogant. "With me here, the constellation fruits won't belong to any of you." Even Su Feng and Ji Shui, who were in the air seizing the mandate of metal, lowered their heads and glanced at Qin Wentian below. Traces of worry could be seen in their eyes. Ji Shui initially wanted to tell Qin Wentian to leave, so that he wouldn't be hunted down by them after he obtained the constellation fruits. However, not only did Qin Wentian refuse to leave, he even personally participated in the contest for the constellation fruits. With so many heaven-chosen present, how could he interfere? However, each level of the constellation fruits had a different level of pressure. Su Feng and Ji Shui were facing the pressure from the mandate of metal, and had no time to worry about Qin Wentian. They could only pray for him. "This fellow is too impulsive. He has underestimated the demon-level geniuses of Xianqing City." Ji Shui silently mused, breaking out in cold sweat for Qin Wentian. When the 3 heaven-chosen saw that Qin Wentian was a step ahead, their eyes gleamed with a terrifying coldness. However, this step of Qin Wentian's wasn't for nothing. As his foot landed, A formless sword intent manifested in the air. However, how could this be sufficient to cause the three of them to waver? Above Ting's head, a terrifying lightning python appeared, exuding demonic chi. This was none other than his astral nova. With a flick of his finger, numerous illusory lightning pythons lunged towards Qin Wentian. Each and every strand of lightning contained a terrifying destructive might. At the same time he blasted out this attack, he took another step forward. Similarly, there were only 3 more steps remaining. Qin Wentian didn't care about his opponent's attack. His arms transformed into the scales of a demonic dragon, as he blasted out 9 palm imprints, intertwining with the lightning pythons. At the same time, Xie Yu's attack arrived. His 9 arms blasted out a series of fist shadows. Qin Wentian blasted out with his palms, causing the space around him to tremble and shatter. However, the fist shadows filled the sky, burying his opponent within. His will of mandates caused the power of the fist shadows to stack together, growing stronger and stronger, transforming into a gigantic fist wave, capable of destroying everything. Qin Wentian didn't retreat. The divine energy in his body erupted forth as he blasted out 9 palm imprints. Only then did the fist light dissipate. But at this moment, Jin Yan's attack arrived. A lotus of golden flames gushed over. This time around it was no longer illusory but corporeal, containing a fearsome fiery might within. Qin Wentian pointed out. Sword chi gushed forth. Yet the lotus didn't explode. When it neared Qin Wentian, a thunderous boom rang out, wanting to destroy everything. Qin Wentian retreated a step as he fell downwards. The terrifying flames wreaked havoc in his surroundings, but Qin Wentian's sword might surged forth, allowing him to withstand it. And at this moment, Xie Yu and Jin Yan borrowed the force of the tremors from the impact to step out as well. The 3 of them advanced while Qin Wentian retreated. All 3 of them were a step ahead of Qin Wentian. Ignorant fool. Jin Yan coldly spoke. His eyes flickered with golden flames as he stared at Qin Wentian. After this matter is over, I will kill you. After speaking, the 3 of them frenziedly unleashed their own strength. Exchanging glances, they circulated the energy in their bodies and madly took a step upwards. A thunderous boom rang out, causing the entire space to tremble. All 3 of them unleashed their strongest auras, resisting the pressure. Right now, they were only 2 steps away from plucking the constellation fruits. The 3 of them exchanged glances, and from the eyes of each other, they could see an intense battle intent flickering within. There were only 2 more steps left. Whoever took the first step would be able to pluck the 2 constellation fruits containing the mandate of Great Earth. As for Qin Wentian, he was no longer in their considerations. Qin Wentian stared at the 3 of them. In that instant, he didn't advance but retreated instead. His body landed on the ground, but the sharpness in his eyes grew even more intense. Vast amounts of demonic chi erupted forth. His body was clad in a demonic armor, and with a stomp of his foot, a terrifying might shook the earth as he soared up into the skies once again. Stepping out, his sword intent whistled through the air. Stepping out 2 steps, his sword chi engulfed the area. Stepping out 3 steps, Qin Wentian's entire body was shrouded by a terrifying sword halo. Ta! Ting, who was in the air, roared. His entire body was enveloped by the terrifying might of lightning, breaking apart everything. He took another step forward, and was now only a step away from the constellation fruits. Jin Yan's body was enveloped by the golden lotus light. The screen of light pierced through the air as he took another step forward. Xie Yu's 9 arms blasted out in all directions. Borrowing the power of the tremors, he similarly took another step forward. Their eyes were all fixed on the constellation fruits ahead. They were only a single step away. They all noticed that other than the pressure, the humming of swords could be heard echoing throughout the heavens and earth. Qin Wentian took his 4th step as his sword-type astral nova floated above his head. Numerous illusory sword shadows could be seen revolving around him as the sword swayed in the wind. As the 5th step landed, the entire space was enveloped by the dual might of sword chi and earth pressure. The gazes of the 3 in front froze. Ting turned his head to glance at Qin Wentian, only to see that Qin Wentian was already 1 step behind him. Qin Wentian actually dared to return? How powerful was that sword chi? This constellation fruit is mine. Ting took the final step forward. How can I allow you to enjoy it alone? Jin Yan similarly stepped out. Roar! Xie Yu howled in madness, not fearing the pressure as he took another step forward. The three of them stepped forward and stretched their hands out, aiming for the same constellation fruit. This constellation fruit was located at the front. It would be easier for them to pluck it. But at this very moment, that lingering sword might suddenly bore down on them. Qin Wentian's sixth step landed, and the true killing might of the seven annihilation swordplay directly penetrated into their bodies. Their countenances drastically changed, as though millions upon millions of sword intents were piercing through their bodies. Puchi! The branch of the constellation fruit was directly severed. That terrifying pressure was broken apart by the sword qi as it slashed downwards. Two constellation fruits fell together with the branch. The countenances of the three drastically changed as they stretched their hands out to pluck the fruits. However, they only saw boundless sword light slashing through the branches of the constellation fruits, destroying everything in its path. You dare! Yin Ting roared as he retracted his palms. His body pressed downwards as the power of thunder and earth frenziedly converged into a terrifying bolt of lightning that lunged towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian stretched his hands out and grabbed hold of the constellation fruit. He felt an incomparably heavy sensation, but with an intention of his will, he directly kept it. Pointing his finger upwards, a towering sword might swept over everything, blocking the incoming attack. His body directly fell downwards, instantly returning to the ground. Impudent! The three of them in the air all radiated a terrifying killing intent as they instantly appeared in the airspace above Qin Wentian, surrounding him. You are courting death. Yin Ting stomped downwards, his rage towering up into the skies. The earth beneath his feet directly cracked apart under the might of the lightning. Qin Wentian stared up in the air, only to see that many of the constellation fruits on the gigantic constellation tree had already been plucked. The golden-colored constellation fruits contained a powerful mandate of metal. One was seized by Jian Jingtian from the Heaven-Shocking Sword sect, while the other was seized by Su Feng. As for the constellation fruits containing the mandate of demonic beasts, Feng Yunhe from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan seized one, while the other was snatched away by Little Rascal. As for the blood-colored constellation fruits containing the mandate of blood, all of them were seized by Shang-Chi. On the gigantic constellation tree, only the 4 constellation fruits on the top 2 layers remained unharvested. But at this moment the various experts were already rushing over there. Only Yin Ting and the others didn't do so. They wanted to kill Qin Wentian. Their killing intents frenziedly gushed forth. Qin Wentian dared to seize their constellation fruits. He had to die for sure. There was no chance of survival at all. Right now, they didn't even have a single constellation fruit in their hands. VZ. At this moment, the immortal binding rope appeared in the air, shooting towards Yin Ting and the other 2. Yin Ting and the others stiffened as they evaded. The immortal binding rope rapidly extended outwards as Ji Shui stood in the air. Su Feng's silhouette flickered as he appeared with a resplendent long spear in his hands. The 3 of you are geniuses from the various major powers, yet you actually joined forces to deal with a single person? What a joke! Ji Shui stared at the 3 of them as she mocked. She didn't expect that Qin Wentian would actually be able to snatch food from the tiger's mouth, snatching the constellation fruits away. Do the 2 of you want to interfere in this matter? Yin Ting coldly asked. In the air, a group of experts descended, sealing this entire space. These were none other than the experts from the Yin clan and Golden Fire Aristocrat clan. The so-called geniuses are merely SOSO. The 3 of us actually couldn't even obtain a single constellation fruit. The long spear in Su Feng's hand spun as a terrifying sharpness gushed forth from it. Su Feng, if you want to interfere in this matter, even if you are an outer disciple of the Qinghua Mountain, I will still kill you all. Yin Ting coldly spoke. If you guys don't want the other constellation fruits, I will go get them for you. Qin Wentian's countenance was calm. Although these geniuses were strong, and their mandates had all reached the transformation boundary of the 2nd level, given his methods, he wouldn't fear them at all. However, right now he didn't have the time to waste on them. The constellation fruits were extremely important to Heavenly Dipper sovereigns like Wu Xiao. It could increase the speed of one's comprehension of their mandates, and could even aid in comprehending the true intent of their mandates. As for the remaining 4 constellation fruits, he wanted them all. Su Feng Ji Shui. Snatched the constellation fruits. Qin Wentian transmitted his voiceover. After which, he stepped out and executed stellar transposition, vanishing from his original location. Yin Ting and the others turned their heads, only to see Qin Wentian rushing towards the peak of the celestial constellation fruit tree, where the experts were gathered. Has this fellow gone mad? Ji Shui's countenance stiffened when she saw Qin Wentian's actions. Those 4 constellation fruits were the hardest to obtain, and many had failed in their attempts. Not only that, other than them, the other experts were all gathered there. If they rushed over now, the chances of success would be too low, and it would be extremely dangerous. Yin Ting and the others had extremely ugly expressions on their faces when they saw Qin Wentian ignoring their encirclement and actually leaving so easily. Inclining their heads, they soared into the air, staring at Qin Wentian as though they were looking at a dead man. Chapter 492. The ancient tree towered into the skies. It was unknown how many growth rings it had. At this moment, Qin Wentian was walking towards the constellation fruit that contained the mandate of space. He didn't want to obtain this fruit for himself, but for Qing. From the Sky Harmony City until now, there were many people who had helped him before. Foster father Qin Chuan, teacher Mustang, senior sister Luo Huan, fairy Qingmei. To many people, Qin Wentian owed them all. To Qing'er, he owed her the most. Qing'er wasn't good with words. She didn't speak much and was always cold. Back then, she only obeyed fairy Qingmei's orders, silently protecting him. And this protection lasted for 7 to 8 years. During these 8 years, whenever he was on the brink of death, the person who appeared would always be Qing'er. During the battle at the Pill Emperor Hall, although he was heavily injured, he could still remember the silhouette of Qing'er descending from the skies. When he transformed into a great rock, although that woman didn't speak, she still accompanied him silently. Finally, she helped him obtain the great Nirvana immortal art. He didn't know how much Qing'er had sacrificed for him, but at the very least, he knew that her love for him was extremely heavy. Qing'er is proficient in the mandate of space. This constellation fruit that contains the mandate of space would be of great help to her. I have to obtain this fruit no matter what. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with an intense determination. At this moment, the surrounding area was filled with experts, and the majority of them were all advancing forward, wanting to pluck the constellation fruit. However, how could it be so difficult to obtain a constellation fruit that contained the mandate of space? The closer one got to it, the more chaotic the space around it became. If one wanted to advance forward, they would end up walking in the wrong direction instead. Not only that, there was also a powerful spatial laceration force within. Hence, up until now, no one had succeeded. Unless there was an expert who was extremely proficient in the mandate of space, they might be able to obtain it easily. Below, Yin Ting and the others who were chasing after Qin Wentian could be seen rushing over. The demonic qi radiating from Qin Wentian was extremely terrifying. He directly took a step forward as a surge of spatial energy enveloped him. Yin Ting, who was chasing after him, lifted his palms and attacked. The lightning python devoured everything, yet it seemed as though it had slammed into a spatial barrier. Qin Wentian had already entered the spatial dimension of the constellation fruits. When Qin Wentian stepped into the surroundings of the space mandate fruit, he discovered that he had stepped into a different dimension. Waves of terrifying energy swept over him, as though wanting to tear his body apart. This dimension seems to be independent. The space here seems to be in a state of disorder. Qin Wentian abruptly retreated when he saw a spatial beam slashing his way, after which he dashed forward once more. Although the space here was somewhat distorted, his footsteps were still resolute as he advanced towards the location of the constellation fruits. Qin Wentian had a strange feeling. He was clearly only a step away from the constellation fruits, yet it felt as though he was separated by several layers of space, as though he was very far away. Strands of spatial energy tore through the air. Qin Wentian's blood surged. His eyes were filled with determination as he continued advancing forward. An instant later, a few other figures appeared in the space he was in. Among them, there was actually an extremely beautiful silhouette, the princess of Xianqing City, Shangyu. Qin Wentian could sense that the two of them were currently in the same space. "It's you." Shangyu stared at Qin Wentian as a cold intent flickered in her eyes. Qin Wentian casually cast a glance at her before he continued advancing forward. The spatial energy around him grew stronger and stronger, causing the demonic qi around him to churn wildly. The mandate of space is truly tyrannical. If I can cultivate a true intent of my mandate, I would be able to manifest a celestial phenomenon. The might of my mandate would be even more powerful compared to ordinary celestial phenomenon ascendants. Qin Wentian mused. Although cultivation depended on the person, and the same mandate could unleash different levels of might in the hands of different people, there were still some mandates that had an advantage over others. Hand over the spatial brush. A voice drifted over from behind Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian abruptly turned and slammed his palms down. A demonic dragon roared as its aura towered up into the skies. Just a casual palm strike of his contained an incomparably terrifying might. Shangyu lifted her palms to receive the attack. However, her cultivation base was only at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper. How could she compare against Qin Wentian, who was at the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper? The instant the two of them collided, the dragon imprint transformed into waves of formless energy that gushed into Shangyu's body, causing her robes to be torn apart. Pung! The violent force of the impact forced Shangyu to retreat explosively. Her eyes turned cold as she stared at Qin Wentian. The collar of her robes was torn apart, revealing her snow-white neck. Do you really think that idiot would have a chance just because he fought for the spatial brush? Qin Wentian glanced at Shangyu. Shangyu only felt a terrifying surge of energy gushing into her sea of consciousness, causing an unsightly expression to appear on her face. The current Qin Wentian was indeed much stronger than what she had imagined. Bzzz. At the instant Qin Wentian turned, Shangyu's body abruptly erupted with the might of her bloodline. In that instant her entire body exuded a cold killing intent. Her long hair fluttered in the wind, causing people to shiver in fear. This kind of pressure was so oppressive that it was hard to breathe. Shangyu was a direct descendant of the royal clan of Grand Shang. She possessed the power of her bloodline, the rebirth bloodline. The so-called rebirth bloodline, when activated, would allow the power of the bloodline to permeate every single part of the body, causing every part of the body to be filled with a powerful vitality, akin to the power of rebirth. Such a powerful vitality would allow the body of the possessor of the rebirth bloodline to experience an all-around upgrade, as well as the vitality of the possessor. Everything in the body would be stimulated, and when the user attacked, the amount of energy they could muster would naturally be more ferocious. The energy in the body circulated frenziedly, causing one's defense to be greatly enhanced as well. When this kind of bloodline was activated, even if the power of one's bloodline wasn't particularly powerful, their combat prowess would still be multiplied. Qin Wentian turned his head, and upon seeing the changes in Shangyu, he instantly knew that Shangyu had activated the power of her bloodline. Not only that, when he saw the coldness in Shangyu's pitch-black eyes, as well as her long hair that resembled a waterfall, he knew that Shangyu's bloodline wasn't weak at all. The power of one's bloodline was innate. It was extremely miraculous. Qin Wentian knew that he possessed a powerful demonic bloodline that could allow him to enter a berserk and demonic state, even breaking through to the next level. Just like now, demonic qi towered up into the skies, akin to the sovereign of demons. Although he was at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper, he actually unleashed the aura of a 4th level Heavenly Dipper sovereign. Who says I can't fight? Shangyu, as the genius princess of the Xian King's manor, was extremely outstanding in terms of both strength and appearance. How could she endure Qin Wentian's disdain? Her astral nova manifested. It was in the form of a sword. This sword was as cold as winter water, contrasting perfectly with Shangyu's current demeanor. An intense killing intent permeated the air, causing the temperature of the surroundings to plunge, causing people to feel as though their bodies were about to be sealed in ice. With Shangyu at the center, numerous illusory images of ice manifested in her surroundings. With a single slash of her sword, the entire space seemed to be sealed in ice, leaving only her and Qin Wentian. That coldness directly seeped into Qin Wentian's body, and with every inch the sword advanced, the coldness from Qin Wentian's body grew even stronger. When Qin Wentian sensed this intent, he suddenly understood why Shangyu wanted the spatial brush no matter what. Most probably, the energy she wanted to cultivate in the next cultivation realm was none other than the mandate of space. Not only did she want to use the spatial brush to inscribe divine inscriptions, she also wanted to borrow the power of the spatial brush to sense the wondrous mandate of space. And now she wanted to seize the space constellation fruits. But no matter what her motive was, no matter what relationship she had with Qin Wentian, nobody would be able to stop him from seizing the space constellation fruits. Stepping out, a terrifying aura gushed forth unceasingly. The aura of a demon monarch grew even more intense as his long hair fluttered in the wind. Boom boom. Qin Wentian consecutively took 4 steps forward, as sword qi engulfed the heavens and earth. The killing sword might directly gushed into Shang Yu's body, yet Shang Yu's sword also slashed over, directly piercing into Qin Wentian's body. Scram! Qin Wentian's finger pressed downwards, as the entirety of his energy and sword might converged into a single finger strike. Heaven-breaking finger, a single finger strike that could break the heavens. As the finger descended, Qin Wentian flicked his sleeves as he turned and continued forward. Upon seeing Shang-Chi, Jian Jingtian and the others getting closer to the constellation fruits, his countenance turned heavy. If the constellation fruits landed in their hands, it would be much more difficult for him to seize them. Qin Wentian ignored everything and stepped out. With a wave of his hand, an ancient scroll appeared, directly wrapping around his body. Qin Wentian's body began to emanate the power of space. I wonder if I can sense the power of space? Qin Wentian closed his eyes as an intense sense of perception gushed forth. He stood at his original location waiting. It was already too late for him to take one step at a time. He only had a single chance, and that was to directly step through the spatial barrier. Using the power of space from his body, he tried to sense the entire space around him. It was as though the power of space was flowing within him, until an instant later, the entire space became a straight line. In that instant, there were no spatial barriers between them and the constellation fruits. Shang-Chi and Jian Jingtian stepped out, finally passing the final checkpoint. Their eyes flickered with excitement, and at the same instant, Qin Wentian activated stellar transposition. Stellar transposition wasn't teleportation, it wasn't a spatial-level innate technique. It was merely an explosive burst of astral energy, allowing one's speed to reach an extreme in an instant. Hence, it was useless to use stellar transposition when there was a spatial barrier. But now Qin Wentian's silhouette accurately appeared at the location where the constellation fruits were located. Intense spatial energy ravaged his body, yet he didn't hesitate as he stretched his hands out, grabbing towards the constellation fruits. His eyes flickered with a terrifying determination. With a clench of his fist, the 2 constellation fruits were caught in his grasp. The terrifying spatial energy caused his palms to be lacerated, as traces of blood appeared on the surface. Behind him, Shang-Chi had a look of astonishment on his face as he stared at the silhouette that suddenly appeared. It was as though he had sensed something as a terrifying light flickered in his eyes. Die! The mad demon halberd in Shang-Chi's hands violently stabbed out, wanting to annihilate Qin Wentian on the spot. Courting death. Jian Jingtian also stared in astonishment at the silhouette that just appeared. After which, his sword slashed out explosively. Qin Wentian exerted strength in his hands, plucking the constellation fruits from the tree before keeping them away. The spatial pressure dissipated. The mad demon halberd had already pierced through his body, causing fresh blood to flow. At the same time, a resplendent sword light shot out, piercing into his skin. Pung! Stellar transposition was executed as his body soared up into the air. He didn't retreat but soared up into the air instead. After keeping the constellation fruits, he touched the wound on his waist. There was blood flowing out, and an intense pain could be felt from that wound. Earlier, if he was slightly slower, the mad demon halberd would have already pierced into his body. There was also traces of blood beside his ear, an injury caused by the sword qi. As for Shang Yu, who was fighting against him earlier, she had just blocked the heaven-breaking finger and was coughing out a mouthful of blood. When she inclined her head, she saw Qin Wentian snatching away the constellation fruits. After which, the spatial energy dissipated. Her beautiful eyes stared at the silhouette in front of her. Without the obstruction of the spatial energy, everyone soared up into the air and surrounded Qin Wentian. Was this person not afraid of death after obtaining the constellation fruits? At this moment, Shang Yu and Jian Jingtian were both enraged. How could Qin Wentian swallow the constellation fruits? Chapter 493. Qin Wentian's silhouette soared upwards as he inclined his head and stared at the sky. Over there, the final 2 constellation fruits could be seen, both glowing with a crimson hue. Qin Wentian had personally witnessed the death of the 2 constellation fruits not long ago. There was no sound or aura, and there weren't any injuries on them. These were the hardest fruits to obtain. As he neared, Qin Wentian's heart pounded violently. He could feel every part of his body trembling, and the rate of his heartbeat was so fast that it felt as though his meridians were about to shatter. This caused him to halt his steps as he stared at the crimson fruits in the air, drawing in a deep breath. At this moment, Qin Wentian stood on a tree branch, while Jian Jingtian and Shang-Chi appeared on his left and right. Below him, there were many silhouettes standing on the branches of the celestial constellation tree, all of them staring at him. Other than the 2 constellation fruits of Great Earth, he had also obtained 2 more space constellation fruits. Right now, in the eyes of everyone, he was undoubtedly a treasure. Compared to the 2 constellation fruits above, his value was even greater. You won't be able to keep the constellation fruits. Do you want the fruits or do you want your life? Shang-Chi wielded the terrifying berserk devil halberd in his hands as his blood surged. Every strand of his hair was akin to a sharp blade, and a brilliant light circulated in his palms, exuding an aura of sharpness. At the same time, a blood-colored glow circulated around his body, striking fear into the hearts of those who saw it. Hand over the constellation fruits to me, and I will let you leave. Jian Jingtian stood on the other side, staring at Qin Wentian. At this moment, Yinting, Xieyu, and Jinyan all arrived on the tree branches below. Their auras were all extremely terrifying, and they surrounded Qin Wentian in this narrow space. Madman! Jishue's beautiful eyes flashed with worry when she saw Qin Wentian facing off against so many experts alone. This fellow didn't care about anything else, and was almost struck by the berserk devil halberd. Now that he was surrounded, did he really not want his life anymore? If you want the constellation fruits, follow me up. Qin Wentian soared up into the air as his heart pounded violently. It was as though every inch of his body was pulsating violently, on the verge of collapse. This kind of pulsation was caused by his heart. It was too terrifying. Shang-Chi stepped out, stretching out his palms as a blood-colored palm imprint grabbed towards Qin Wentian. This palm imprint contained a towering blood might, causing Qin Wentian's blood to surge chaotically, as though it was about to break out of his body. Qin Wentian coldly snorted. Fresh blood stained his palms, and with a wave of his hands, a blood-colored curse imprint blasted out. With a thunderous boom, a blood-colored might permeated the air. But at the same time, Jian Jingtian and the others below also stepped up, continuing to press down on Qin Wentian. At this instant, the pressure Qin Wentian felt was too terrifying. It was as though he was a sheep in a pack of wolves, and could die at any moment. Since you want it so much, then come up again. Qin Wentian continued ascending the tree branch, getting closer to the dark red constellation fruits. The pulsation of his body grew even more terrifying, to the point where one could even hear the sound of his heart pounding unceasingly. No matter what, you can't escape death. Shang-Chi's voice was cold as he continued upwards. The sword halo around Jian Jingtian's body enveloped his entire body. The people below weren't willing to be outdone. They started to challenge the pressure from the last 2 constellation fruits. Instantly, with Qin Wentian as the center, over 10 fifth-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns moved closer to the constellation fruits, or more accurately, they moved closer to Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian single-handedly led all the experts here into the envelopment of the celestial constellation tree. Boom boom. Qin Wentian's heart pounded unceasingly. He closed his eyes and quietly sensed the trembling of his body, as though he was trying to get used to it. The power of his bloodline thrummed like an ocean. Lifting his foot, Qin Wentian stepped out once more, causing the hearts of the crowd to pound wildly. Unknowingly, Qin Wentian, who was using the constellation fruits to evade his pursuers, was only 2 steps away from the constellation fruits. Could it be that Qin Wentian also wanted the last 2 constellation fruits that were the hardest to obtain? Shang-Chi, Jian Jingtian, and the other demon-level characters all had heavy expressions on their faces. They could guess what Qin Wentian was thinking. They stared at Qin Wentian. This man was extremely audacious, wanting to hog half of the constellation fruits for himself in front of so many geniuses from the various powers. Ji Shui and Su Feng were also among the crowd. Staring at Qin Wentian, who was the closest to the constellation fruits, they also felt that this was ridiculous. This person's actions were too crazy. Even for Shang-Chi, he would have to consider if he could withstand the pressure if he wanted to take half of the constellation fruits. Yet this white-robed young man seemed to have no fear at all. Or maybe he didn't know how to write the word fear. At this moment, Qin Wentian was feeling an unprecedented pressure. However, this pressure didn't come from those demon-level characters, but rather it came from the constellation fruits. These two constellation fruits were truly capable of killing. His heartbeat had already reached a terrifying frequency. Drawing in a deep breath, Qin Wentian calmed his heart, doing his best to stabilize his state of mind. Every part of his body circulated in sync with his heartbeat, reaching a state of harmony. His steps once again advanced forward. At this moment, not only Qin Wentian, the others who came with him had no time to care about anything else. They could only stabilize their own heartbeats, not daring to attack recklessly. Ooh! Qin Wentian coughed out a mouthful of fresh blood. But he still stood there steadily, staring at the constellation fruits in front of him. What kind of mandate is this? Qin Wentian had never seen such a thing before, yet he felt a strong desire in his heart. He wanted to get his hands on the constellation fruits. Only the last step is left. Shang Yu, who was below, stared at the white-robed young man on the tree branch. Her heart was filled with shock. This young man was a madman. Qin Wentian wanted to stabilize his breathing, allowing his body to regain its balance. But below him, Xie Yu's 9 arms simultaneously shot out terrifying arrows, aiming straight at Qin Wentian. At the same time, 2 of the arrows were locked onto Shang-Chi and Jian Jingtian. The current Qin Wentian, as long as there was an external attack, his heart would explode and he would die. As for the interspatial ring on his body after his death, Qin Wentian had to obtain it no matter what. Careful! Ji Shui shouted to Qin Wentian. Given Qin Wentian's perception, he could naturally sense that there was a powerful killing intent locked onto him from behind. Not only him, Shang-Chi and Jian Jingtian could feel it as well. Their auras gushed forth as they prepared to unleash their attacks. They had the same thoughts as Xie Yu. If Qin Wentian died, they had to obtain his interspatial ring no matter what. Pung pung pung. The silhouettes of the experts all stepped out, moving in the direction of Qin Wentian. They didn't care about the immense pressure. They had to fight for a sliver of an opportunity. Qin Wentian didn't move at all. From the perspective of the spectators, Qin Wentian's entire body was completely tensed up, and he had no way to move at all. This move of Xie Yu's was truly sinister. No wonder he was the one who was the furthest away from the constellation fruits. It seemed like Xie Yu had long since planned this, and was prepared to fire his arrow at the most crucial moment. This white-robed young man is truly courting death. He actually dared to get so close to the constellation fruits. The closer he is to the constellation fruits, the weaker his resistance would be. Some of the weaker cultivators silently mused as they stared at the crowd in the air. He had obtained quite a number of constellation fruits, but it was all for the benefit of someone else. This person would die for sure. Xie Yu's arrow would definitely penetrate through him. There was no way for him to block it. He could only wait for his death. But at this moment, the crowd only saw Qin Wentian's palms moving as both of his palms blasted downwards. Boom boom. The sound of a bell chime rang out, and at this moment, it was as though a series of ancient bells had appeared in the air. This was none other than the heartbreak chime. In that instant, the countenances of Shang-Chi and the others instantly turned pale. They were already very close to the constellation fruits, and their hearts were pounding furiously. At this moment, Qin Wentian's innate technique was actually the heartbreak chime. Pooh! Shang-Chi felt as though his heart was about to explode. He coughed out a mouthful of blood as his body plummeted downwards. He circulated all of his energy to protect his heart from shattering. Boop boop boop. At this moment, not only Shang-Chi, everyone else was also plummeting downwards, coughing out fresh blood. The reverberation of the bell chime was like a talisman that hastened death. The corpses of the fallen cultivators blocked Qin Wentian from the range of Xie Yu's arrow. Unless Xie Yu's arrow could change direction, It would penetrate through the corpses of the fallen cultivators before continuing on towards Qin Wentian. Xiaoyu obviously didn't dare to do that. Not only that, he himself had also coughed out a mouthful of blood as his countenance turned pale. The scene at this moment could only be described as magnificent. Those who were waiting for Qin Wentian's death below were all stunned as they stared at the scene in front of them. Regardless of geniuses or geniuses, all of them plummeted downwards, including Shangqi, Jianjing, Tian Yimting, and the others. None of them were able to escape. At the instant Qin Wentian's palms slammed out, the bodies of the geniuses all fell horizontally to the ground. It was as though all of this was to serve as a foil to that white-robed figure standing there proudly. He wasn't doing this to evade the pursuit. He was doing this for the constellation fruits. At the last step, he used a single palm strike to destroy all his opponents. He alone wanted to become enemies with all the geniuses present. So what of it? Since he dared to seize half of the constellation fruits, what else wouldn't he dare to do? Shang Yu's beautiful eyes froze. This scene caused her heart to tremble, causing her to hold her breath. It was as though she didn't dare to believe what she was seeing was real. This was too surreal. On her beautiful face there was only shock left. Ji Shui and Su Feng's hearts twitched. They were deeply shocked by the scene in front of them. Ji Shui's lips were slightly agape. He dared to do this? So it turned out that he already had the confidence to do so. He was waiting for the geniuses to chase after him, getting closer to the constellation fruits, waiting for the decisive strike that would decide everything. At this moment no one else dared to disturb him. The white-robed young man had his back facing the geniuses. He didn't even turn his head back to glance at them. When he felt the pressure from the constellation fruits, he already knew that when everyone neared the constellation fruits, the might unleashed by the Heartbreak Ancient Bell would be extremely destructive, capable of sweeping away everything. That white-robed young man took the final step, keeping the dark red constellation fruits into his pouch. All the energy from the Heartbreak Ancient Bell vanished in an instant, leaving a deep impression in the hearts of the spectators. Even for Shangyu, when that young man became a legend many years later, she would still remember this day. The first time that white-robed young man caused her heart to palpitate. Chapter 494. Now that the constellation fruit tree no longer contained the will of mandates, the pressure exerted by the constellation tree no longer had any effect on the others. Right now, on this towering ancient tree, there were only lush branches and leaves. Not a single constellation fruit was left, and Qin Wentian himself had obtained 6 constellation fruits. Little Rascal, who had already sneaked to the side, had also obtained one. This meant that Qin Wentian alone had obtained a total of 7 constellation fruits. As for this constellation fruit tree, naturally no one was willing to destroy it. Maybe it would be able to bear more constellation fruits in the future, but that would be something that would only happen many years later. Most probably, the other major powers wouldn't give up on the fight for it, but that wasn't a problem to be considered now. Several silhouettes fell to the ground. These were those with weaker heart meridians. Under the might of Qin Wentian's heartbreak chime, their heart meridians were directly shattered, their life force severed. Earlier, when they were close to the constellation fruits, their hearts were too tensed up, akin to a taut bowstring. At this moment it was as if a saber had sliced through them, easily breaking them apart. Leaving aside them, even Shang-Chi, who had a powerful bloodline, felt his heart meridians being injured. He fell to the ground unsteadily, almost falling to his knees. He directly swallowed a medicinal pill to stabilize his heart meridians, but the killing intent in his eyes was incomparably terrifying. Inclining his head, he stared at the constellation tree in the air, only to see Qin Wentian soaring through the air like a great rock. A single person had obtained 6 constellation fruits. How could he not leave? Everyone here, even if they obtained 2 or 3 constellation fruits, had no choice but to leave. Stop him! Kill him! Numerous voices rang out at the same instant. Shang-Chi, Jianjing Tian and the other heavens chosen all called out. Those who weren't injured, their silhouettes flickered as they rushed towards Qin Wentian. The one chasing the fastest was none other than Xiaoyu. Earlier, he was the furthest away from the constellation fruits, and hence, he was the one who suffered the least damage. Upon seeing Qin Wentian wanting to flee, All 9 of his arms aimed their arrows at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian felt the terrifying arrow coming at him from behind. It flashed like a giant rock, and the arrow flew over his head. Little Rascal dashed over and appeared at his side. 1 man and 1 beast dashed madly into the mountain range. There was no longer any need to stay behind. "Where are you going?" An ear-piercing voice drifted over as a raging wind howled. Qin Wentian only felt a shadow above his head. Inclining his head, he saw a silhouette appearing there. This person was none other than the heaven-chosen of the Wind Rock aristocrat clan, Feng Yunhe. At this moment, a pair of wings had sprouted out of his body, resembling a great rock. His speed was even faster than everyone else here. The Feng Yunhe swooped downwards, stretching out his hands. His hands were akin to golden claws, indestructible and unstoppable, directly grabbing towards Qin Wentian. What a powerful attack! Qin Wentian could feel the terrifying power of the claws. The divine energy in his body roared and his blood surged. He blasted out a seal and the curse aura filled the air. This was the blood curse imprint. Bang! As the intense attacks collided, Feng Yunhe seemed to have sensed the might of the curse. His silhouette flickered as he vanished from his original location. Qin Wentian stared ahead, only to see a silhouette floating there. It was none other than Feng Yunhe. Qin Wentian looked at the Feng Yunhe blocking his way. The Feng Yunhe had a pair of wings, and there seemed to be a bloodline power roaring within it. The Wind Rock aristocrat clan. The meaning behind their name was Wind Rock. The blood of the Wind Rock clan flowed in their veins. In the Xian King city, the speed of those from the Wind Rock aristocrat clan was unrivaled. Even the king manor of the Xian King city couldn't compare to them. As a heavens chosen from the Wind Rock aristocrat clan, Feng Yunhe naturally wasn't someone ordinary 5th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns could compare to. His combat prowess was simply too great. Qin Wentian could kill so many 5th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereigns alone. If Feng Yunhe was given enough time, he would be able to do the same as well. Ordinary cultivators at the same level of cultivation couldn't compare to him in terms of speed and attack power. How could they even fight against him? Feng Yunhe wasn't just fast. Otherwise, he wouldn't have become a heaven's chosen. Spit out the constellation fruits. Feng Yunhe blocked Qin Wentian's path. Momentarily, the people behind him all rushed over. Qin Wentian naturally couldn't continue fighting. His silhouette flickered as he landed on Little Rascal's back. A pair of golden wings appeared on Little Rascal's back as it arced through the air, flying away. Humph! Feng Yunhe coldly snorted. Momentarily, his body was akin to a true rock in the wind. With a wave of his palms, numerous golden spears appeared in his talons. The raging wind howled. Feng Yunhe locked onto Qin Wentian. The golden spears blasted out explosively, blocking Qin Wentian's path of retreat. At the same time, another golden spear pierced towards Qin Wentian's body. Little Rascal rapidly descended from the air, directly landing on the ground, dodging the golden spears. Feng Yunhe's silhouette flickered as he appeared in front of Qin Wentian once more, blocking Qin Wentian's path of retreat. Qin Wentian had no chance of escaping alive. A raging wind gusted as numerous silhouettes floated in the air. During this short moment of delay, many experts from the Wind Rock aristocrat clan arrived. All of them had golden spears in their hands as they floated in the air, coldly staring at Qin Wentian below. Behind them, the experts from the various powers including Shang-Chi, Jianjing Tian and the other heavens chosen, all had terrifying killing intent flickering in their eyes as they locked onto Qin Wentian from afar. Ji Shui madly sprinted forward, yet Su Feng pulled her back. Ji Shui turned her head back, only to see that Su Feng wasn't looking at her. He was staring at the vast army ahead as he shook his head. "I'm the same as you, I owe him my life. But if we fight now, it would be no different from sending ourselves to our deaths. There's no meaning to it." Su Feng was clearly a rational person. From an emotional point of view, they should help Qin Wentian. But from a rational point of view, such a method of death would be pointless. This voice was extremely cruel. Ji Shui's mouth was agape as she stared at the boundless aura ahead. She felt a deep sense of helplessness. Although her strength wasn't bad against so many experts, there was no way she could survive. That crimson-eyed demonic beast has disappeared. Maybe it died in his hands. Since he dared to seize the constellation fruits, Maybe he has some life-saving methods. Su Feng spoke in a low voice. Although he had his suspicions as well, in such a situation, there was no way they could survive. His words caused Ji Shue's eyes to brighten. Maybe he really did have a solution. Shang Yu's silhouette flickered as she lagged behind. Staring at the experts ahead, they were like a pack of hungry wolves hunting for their prey. How could that white-robed young man survive in such a dire situation? Qin Wentian stood on the ground. His footsteps halted as he stared at the silhouettes radiating a towering killing intent in the air. In addition to the fact that there were more and more cultivators gathering behind him, he was sure that as long as they all attacked together, he would be reduced to dust. Hand over the constellation fruits and I won't kill you. You might still have a chance to live. Feng Yunhe roared at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian glanced at Feng Yunhe as his blood surged within him. His gaze was incomparably demonic as his long hair fluttered in the wind. Stepping out, his sword intent permeated the air, sweeping over everything. Boom boom boom. Qin Wentian continued stepping out. With every step he took, the sword chi he emitted grew stronger and stronger. When his fourth step landed, boundless sword chi appeared in the air. You are courting death. Feng Yunhe roared. His golden spear pierced through the air, and at the instant he acted, the silhouettes in the air all reacted at the same time. Countless golden spears pierced through everything, shooting towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian acted as though he didn't see anything. He took the fifth step, and as his foot landed, the bodies of those in the surroundings trembled violently. It was as though sword chi had penetrated through their bodies. Qin Wentian's astral nova flashed as it manifested. The astral nova trembled violently, as though a forest of swords had appeared between the heavens and the earth. However, the golden spears all shot over. Pung! Astral light erupted as his silhouette vanished, directly reappearing in the air. It was as though in that instant earlier, he had passed through the gaps between the golden spears and soared up into the air. After which, he took his sixth step. The sound of swords resonated in the air, causing the countenances of the people in the surroundings to drastically change. They hurriedly retreated while raising their palms to attack. The astral novas in their bodies were all trembling violently, as though streams of sword intent were directly penetrating into their bodies. Fresh blood splashed out as their arms were torn apart by the sword intent. Boundless sword might ravaged their bodies. Even Feng Yunhe's body trembled as he sensed the sword might permeating the air. His eyes gleamed with a terrifying sharpness. Qin Wentian's body tensed up. It was difficult for him to unleash that final sword strike. The 7 annihilation swordplay, a sword strike for each step. Every sword strike contained the might of the previous 5 swords, and each sword strike required an even stronger force to be unleashed. At this moment, for the 6th sword strike, Qin Wentian could sense the heavens and earth, transforming the energy of heaven and earth into swords. He had already reached his limit. Shang-Chi and the others howled in rage as they rushed over. When they felt that terrifying sword might, terrifying auras erupted forth from their bodies, as though sword might was circulating around them. However, after this sword strike landed, they really wanted to see how Qin Wentian would die. Jian Jingtian stepped out, as boundless sword might gushed forth from his body. Lifting his palms, the heavenly dipper sword spun madly as it whistled through the air. 1 sword gave birth to 2 swords, 2 swords gave birth to 4 swords. In front of him, a row of swords appeared, each and every one of them exuding terrifying sword chi. Die! Jian Jingtian waved his hands, as the row of swords in front of him pierced through the air, as though they could penetrate through everything, instantly arriving before Qin Wentian. However, at this instant, Qin Wentian's body seemed to have an incomparable suction force to the swords. The swords were about to penetrate through his body, yet they were forcefully halted in their tracks. Die! Jian Jingtian howled in rage. Momentarily, the row of swords continued their slaughter, wanting to annihilate Qin Wentian. Bang! A terrifying sword might abruptly erupted forth from Qin Wentian's body. It was as though the entire space around him had transformed into sword chi. Lifting his foot, Qin Wentian stomped down with great difficulty. Finally, his foot landed on the ground. With this step, the row of swords formed by Jian Jingtian actually couldn't be controlled and were all swept backwards. At the same time, this entire space was filled with countless beams of sword light. For a period of time, fresh blood splattered through the air. It was unknown how many experts had fallen. Some even directly turned into dust, dissipating under the might of the sword intent. This time around it wasn't merely an injury, it was a complete annihilation. Feng Yunhe, Shang-Chi and the others all retreated with explosive speed. The astral novas in their bodies trembled violently, as though under the might of that sword might, their astral novas were on the verge of shattering. At this moment, their hearts were filled with terror. This innate technique of Qin Wentian was meant for mass killing. If it was targeted at a single person, how terrifying would the might of that attack be? This sword strike caused Qin Wentian's sword Yuanfu to be completely emptied out. The seventh sword strike of the seven annihilation swordplay was too terrifying, but the effect was also shocking. At least half of the experts present were either heavily injured or died on the spot. Those who block my path die. Qin Wentian roared. Astral light erupted forth as his silhouette vanished once again, ignoring the exhaustion of his astral energy. He directly appeared in front of one of the experts, and a terrifying blood-colored palm imprint slammed downwards. That person used his bare hands to block it, but after being struck by the blood-colored curse imprint, his entire arm was instantly reduced to a pile of dried bones. Moments later, the rest of his body was covered in blood as he screamed in agony as he fell from the air. Boom! After Qin Wentian killed that person, he vanished once again, reappearing in front of another expert. With a wave of his hand, an ancient bell chimed, penetrating deep into the heart of that expert, causing him to cough out blood. That expert sensed Qin Wentian's presence and immediately retreated with explosive speed. However, it was already too late. After the heartbreak chime, Qin Wentian executed stellar transposition again. Qin Wentian's palm slashed out as the keening of a sword could be heard, slicing through the throat of that expert, killing people, seizing their lives as though he was invincible. Chapter 495. Qin Wentian's silhouette was akin to a god of slaughter, ruthlessly impacting the hearts of the crowd. In the blink of an eye, over 10 heavenly dipper sovereigns had fallen. These experts, if placed in any of the major powers, could all be considered as core characters. Staring ahead, Qin Wentian stood proudly in the air after the slaughter, exuding a demon-like handsomeness. Just a single glance from him was enough to cause fear in the hearts of people. It was as though he was the monarch of all demons. The constellation fruits shall be seized by those who are strong enough. Since I've already seized them, how can I allow any of you to touch them? Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he departed once more. Little rascal who had shrunk back to its original size expanded once more, transforming into a golden-colored primordial demon. It caught hold of Qin Wentian and soared into the air. In that instant, the crowd was so shocked that they paused for a moment, not daring to give chase. Where do you think you're going? Person behind roared. However, Qin Wentian's eyes flickered, as though he had a third eye. With a single glance, that person only felt countless demons rushing towards him. His countenance drastically changed as he fell into a dreamscape. Pucci! A scarlet demon halberd pierced right through his head. This was none other than Qin Wentian's stellar transposition, killing him with a single strike of his halberd. Qin Wentian pulled out the scarlet demon halberd as he coldly swept his eyes over the crowd. Only a few people dared to look him in the eye. Too powerful, an expert at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper was insta-killed. They didn't even have the chance to release their astral novas before they died. Scarlet demon halberd. The countenances of Shang-Chi and the others froze. Yinting also stared at the ancient halberd in Qin Wentian's hands. That was clearly the one forged by Qi Yezi. No wonder the scarlet demon halberd disappeared. So it turned out that it was actually in the hands of this person. Whoever dares to pursue, I'll kill them all. Qin Wentian continued moving forward. This time around no one dared to say anything. Many people were already frightened by Qin Wentian's domineering aura, their hearts trembling. Those who were killed by Qin Wentian weren't weak at all. If they continued to chase after Qin Wentian, they wouldn't be able to defend against Qin Wentian's sure-kill attacks. Moreover, this person had a strange divine ability that was similar to teleportation. He was extremely fast, as if he could instantly shift his position. This made it impossible for them to attack as a group. Otherwise, with their strength, A group attack would be enough to destroy Qin Wentian. But now they were shocked by Qin Wentian's ruthless and decisive killing. Qin Wentian's outburst just now was too terrifying, and his strength was too astonishing. However, even though they were stunned, the heaven's favorites wouldn't give up just like that. Feng Yunhe's silhouette flickered, like a great rock soaring in the wind. A raging wind howled, and in the blink of an eye, he appeared above Qin Wentian. Fighting so recklessly, the astral energy in his body should be depleted soon. Xie Yu coldly spoke as he chased after Qin Wentian. His words caused the eyes of many to flicker. Indeed, they were shocked by Qin Wentian's ferocious might. But in truth, a battle of that level would definitely exhaust a terrifying amount of astral energy. Qin Wentian's cultivation base was only at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper, and he used his unique bloodline to raise his aura to the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper. Most probably, Qin Wentian wouldn't be able to maintain his berserk state for too long. He was intentionally using this to scare them. Shang-Chi, Jianjingtian, Yin Ting and Jin Yan, the 6 heavens favorites, all chased after Qin Wentian. The others also followed behind, but they didn't dare to get too close to them. The strength of heaven's favorites was extremely high. Even if Qin Wentian suddenly attacked, they would still be able to block it. Qin Wentian and Little Rascal continued advancing. When they sensed Feng Yunhe in the air, as well as the mandate of heaven's favorites following behind, Qin Wentian's pitch-black eyes gleamed with an intense coldness. If these people didn't kill him and obtain the constellation fruits, they wouldn't give up. His footsteps halted, and in an instant, the 6 chosen surrounded him. Their astral novas and wills of their mandates erupted forth at the same time, causing him to feel extremely uncomfortable. Busy. The 3rd eye in the center of his brows swept out as his will of will gushed towards the 6 people around him. He released his great dream astral nova and momentarily, a dreamlike intent enveloped this entire space, causing people to feel a sense of drowsiness. Even the illusions of their dreams could be seen flashing past their eyes. Mandate of dreams. The heavens' favorites gritted their teeth as they guarded their state of mind, not allowing themselves to be affected. No matter how strong you are, you will die here today. Jian Jingtian's countenance was as sharp as a sword. Towering sword might gushed forth from his body as numerous astral novas floated before him. Slamming out with his palms, the keening of swords whistled through the air as they slashed towards Qin Wentian. The power of this sword wasn't strong. Qin Wentian merely waved his scarlet demon halberd, causing the sword chi to dissipate. However, Jian Jingtian unceasingly slammed out with his palms, causing the sword chi to converge into a sword chi river that tore through the skies, gushing towards Qin Wentian. At the same time, Jian Jingtian stepped out, and with every step he took, the sword chi river grew even more terrifying. His sword intent continued to converge, causing terrifying rumbling sounds to echo out in the air. This was one of the ultimate innate techniques he cultivated, heaven-shocking sword, capable of causing mountains and rivers to tremble. The scarlet demon halberd in Qin Wentian's hand spun slightly. This scarlet demon halberd was an initial grade 5th rank divine weapon forged by Qi Yezi. However, this 5th rank divine weapon was a little unique. It wasn't a direct attack type weapon. Before his death, he used his life force and soul as a sacrifice, transforming it into a dream devil intent, wanting Yin Cheng to lose his life. The scarlet demon halberd was proficient in using the power of dreams. Right now, Qin Wentian wasn't too familiar with it, hence he had no way to unleash its true might. But even so, with the scarlet demon halberd in his hands, it was easier for one to fall into a dream devil trap. Although it wasn't a direct attack type weapon, it was still much more tyrannical compared to ordinary 4th rank divine weapons. His silhouette shuddered as the scarlet demon halberd in Qin Wentian's hands blasted out explosively, slamming into the sword chi river. A terrifying surge of energy permeated through, and the sword chi from Qin Wentian grew even more intense, causing the sword chi river to seethe with madness. Yin Ting stood in the air as he coldly snorted. His body was shrouded by the power of millions of lightning bolts, resembling a god of thunder. He stretched out his palms as boundless lightning energy intertwined with each other. Finally, a bolt of lightning blasted down from the sky. His palms blasted downwards, and in an instant, a palm imprint of a lightning god exuded a towering might that blotted out the heavens and earth as it blasted towards Qin Wentian. Jin Yin unleashed a golden flame lotus that was compressed to the extreme. Shang-Chi and Feng Yunhe also unleashed their own attacks. When Xie Yu saw that everyone had unleashed their attacks, his 9 arrows shot through the air, converging into one as they shot towards Qin Wentian. In that instant, all of Qin Wentian's paths of retreat were sealed. Although his stellar transposition allowed him to teleport, it wasn't a true spatial teleportation. Instead, it was a matter of speed. When all paths of retreat were sealed, no matter how fast he was, he had to be able to evade the attacks of the innate techniques. The attacks of Heaven's Chosen are truly extraordinary. This Qin Wentian wouldn't be able to escape even if he grew wings. The spectators silently mused. However, at this moment, Qin Wentian's sword-type astral nova erupted forth in rage, colliding with the river of sword qi. At the same time, with a wave of his palms, his heavenly hammer astral nova smashed towards the incoming arrows of Xie Yu. With a stomp of his feet, astral light erupted forth as he executed stellar transposition, aiming in the direction of Xie Yu. Pong! Numerous tyrannical attacks blasted towards the location where Qin Wentian was standing. The earth shattered as a deep crater appeared. The heavenly hammer astral soul swept out with terrifying might, shattering the incoming arrows as it continued on its way towards Xie Yu. After the heavenly hammer astral soul, Qin Wentian's silhouette appeared. Traces of blood could be seen on his back, and his long hair was in a mess. Earlier, although he had executed stellar transposition, he was still struck by the aftershock of the attack. His astral nova is so powerful. In the hearts of the spectators, Qin Wentian's first 3 astral souls were all at the 5th heavenly layer. His first astral soul was also at the 5th heavenly layer, and the astral nova he condensed was also condensed from divine energy. For ordinary people, their first astral soul would usually be at the 2nd or 3rd heavenly layer, and the might of their astral novas would naturally be much weaker compared to their later astral novas. Qin Wentian stared at the incomparably gigantic heavenly hammer astral soul smashing towards him. His 9 arms simultaneously blasted out a terrifying golden fist light. Pung! The heavenly hammer astral soul was repelled by the impact force. Qin Wentian waved his palms and directly blasted out an attack behind him. At the same time, his third eye frenziedly swept its gaze over Xie Yu, causing Xie Yu's sea of consciousness to tremble violently. It was as though countless demons had appeared and were trying to tear him apart. VZ! Qin Wentian's scarlet demon halberd slashed out, as the power of the dream devil grew even more terrifying. Xie Yu stepped out, and the astral novas above his head simultaneously erupted forth. A terrifying fist smashed out, and at the same time, an earthen palm imprint blasted out. Scram! Xie Yu howled in rage. However, he only saw an explosion of astral light as Qin Wentian's silhouette directly vanished. Xie Yu's countenance drastically changed and instantly, his 9 arms swept backwards, aiming for the back of his body. At the same time, the other experts also rushed over. Feng Yunhe's speed was the fastest, and his golden claws smashed downwards, aiming for Qin Wentian's head. Die! Qin Wentian's will of mandate frenziedly gushed into Xie Yu's sea of consciousness, while the scarlet demon halberd shot towards Xie Yu's head. The 9 arms of Qin Wentian forcibly grabbed hold of the scarlet demon halberd, as a terrifying pressure bore down on the halberd. Thunk! The scarlet demon halberd erupted forth with the terrifying power of the dream devil. At this moment, Xie Yu was already in a daze, and he could only rely on his instincts to defend himself, not allowing the scarlet demon halberd to strike him. The mandate of earth and metal, their defense is truly terrifying. Qin Wentian sighed in his heart. He retracted the scarlet demon halberd and slashed out towards Feng Yunhe. The two of them both shuddered violently, and Shang-Chi's blood palm imprint slashed over. Qin Wentian only felt that he was about to be drowned within this attack. Little rascal! Qin Wentian roared. Little rascal, who hadn't participated in the battle all this while, leaped onto Qin Wentian's body, and at the same time, his astral nova returned to his body. With a pull of his palms, the ancient scroll that enveloped Qin Wentian began to shimmer with an intense spatial energy. Not good. The countenances of the experts were all taken aback. This was a spatial scroll. Jian Jingtian's astral nova directly pierced out, instantly arriving before Qin Wentian. However, Qin Wentian's scarlet demon halberd smashed out, and with a thunderous boom, The impact caused his internal organs to tremble. Almost at the same time, a violent barrage of attacks rained down on Qin Wentian. While the spatial energy permeated the area to the extreme, a brilliant light flashed, and Qin Wentian's silhouette vanished from his original location. Rumble. The ground where Qin Wentian was standing at crumbled apart. The 6 chosen all stood there in a daze. Qin Wentian had vanished. Right before their eyes, he left with 7 constellation fruits. Chapter 496. The celestial constellation fruit tree had been nurtured for an unknown number of years, and there were only a total of over 10 fruits. The strongest powers in Xian King City, including the heavens chosen from the various major powers, all came here to vie for the fruits. But in the end, half of the fruits were taken away by a young man in white with a cultivation base at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper. Not only that, he did so openly, killing more than half of the participants. Even when facing against the 6 heavens chosen, he still had the strength to resist. This matter would soon spread to Xian King City. At that time, the faces of those heavens chosen would all be thrown away. Too shameful. There were quite a few who didn't even manage to obtain a single constellation fruit. To them, this was an absolute humiliation. Their eyes stared dumbly at the deep crater in front of them. An intense killing intent gushed forth from Shang-Chi and the others. He fled. That was a spatial scroll. Shang-Yu. Shang-Chi called out, only to see Shang-Yu dashing over from behind. How could the impact of this battle not be intense? That young man in white was actually so terrifying. When she saw the spatial scroll, she instantly understood why Qin Wentian would fight with her for the spatial brush. He himself was a divine inscriptionist, and one that could inscribe divine inscriptions. To him, the spatial brush was equivalent to a spatial scroll. He naturally wanted it. Not only that, given Qin Wentian's personality, he would dare to snatch 7 constellation fruits under such circumstances. What was the point of him fighting with her for the spatial brush? Comparing the two of them, competing with her for the spatial brush was simply not worth mentioning. Su Feng and Ji Shui, who were behind, were also stunned speechless. So it turned out that he could have left long ago, but he didn't want to waste the spatial scroll. Instead, he chose to slaughter his way out and even wanted to kill Xie at the very last moment. He had once saved Xie's life, but Xie wanted to kill him instead. Before he left, he still wanted to reclaim Xie's life, but he was just a hair away. Su Feng and Ji Shui were thinking that if it wasn't for the 6 geniuses ganging up on him, Xie would have already died on the spot. Shang-Yu, that spatial scroll, was it created after he seized the spatial brush? Shang-Chi asked Shang-Yu. It should be. He is a divine inscriptionist grandmaster. Shang-Yu nodded. The spectators were even more astonished. Just how powerful was Qin Wentian's combat prowess? Not only that, he was also a divine inscriptionist who could inscribe divine inscriptions on his own. If that's the case, he probably has more than one scroll. Shang-Chi's countenance was extremely sinister. Evidently, he had no intentions of sparing Qin Wentian. The value of those constellation fruits was indescribable, and after suffering such a huge loss, how could he give up so easily? However, if Qin Wentian had many space scrolls, even if they found him again, there would be no way to make him stay. At this moment, Shang-Chi and the others abruptly inclined their heads and stared at the sky behind them. Over there, a large number of experts from the various major powers had finally arrived. Sadly, it was already too late. They didn't manage to obtain many constellation fruits. All of them were with Qin Wentian. What happened? The experts who had just arrived were puzzled when they saw the situation. Weren't they supposed to be fighting and snatching? Why were they all standing here in a daze? Uncle. Shang-Yu glanced at the person who asked the question. After which, she explained to him what had happened. Instantly, the experts who had just arrived understood what was going on. Doesn't the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan have the 10,000 miles tracking mirror? The expert from the King's Manor turned his gaze onto an expert from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan as he asked. The expert from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan nodded his head. If he has the space scrolls, even if we managed to track him, he would instantly flee. Hence, we need the aid of the sealing treasure of the Ying clan. That's right. If both the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan and Ying clan are willing to take out their treasures, there's no way for him to escape. The 10,000 miles tracking mirror would be able to lock onto an area of a few thousand miles. And given his strength, even if he inscribed the space scrolls, he would still be able to teleport a distance of 1,000 miles. The expert from the Heaven Shocking Sword sect nodded his head as he spoke. The eyes of the experts from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan and Yin clan flickered with uncertainty. After which, the expert from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan spoke. It's easy to say, but these two treasures are extraordinary. We have to report it to our clan first before we can claim it. In that case, after we obtain the constellation fruits, can't we split it among the major powers? The Wind Rock Aristocrat clan and Yin clan can each take 2. As for the remaining 3, that's our problem. How about it? The expert from the King's Manor spoke. The experts from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan and Yin clan pondered for a moment, but they didn't dare to offend the King's Manor too much. Hence, they nodded their heads in agreement. As for the other major powers, they were all silently cursing in their hearts. The King's Manor was extremely powerful. If the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan and Yin clan could take 2, he would definitely take the same number as well. In that case, it was as good as having nothing left for them to contend for. Fine, I'll have to trouble the 2 of you to return and retrieve the treasures. The expert from the King's Manor spoke. The experts from the Wind Rock Aristocrat clan and Yin clan nodded their heads before their silhouettes flickered as they sped away. Their cultivation bases were already at the upper 3 levels of Heavenly Dipper, and the existence of the constellation fruits would allow them to break through to the perfection boundary of their mandates. They might even be able to comprehend true intents. Uncle, there's one more here. At this moment, Shang-Chi's silhouette flickered as he pointed towards the horizon. Over there, Su Feng and Ji Shui were currently flying away. Yet the expert from the King's Manor called out, "The 2 of you, please wait a moment." Su Feng's silhouette trembled. He knew that he wouldn't be able to leave. He turned and stared at the experts flying over, his eyes staring straight at the expert from the King's Manor. Juniors are Su Feng from the Qinghua Mountain and junior sister Ji Shui. Our only constellation fruit was obtained through our own strength. Senior, it wouldn't be too good if we snatch it away forcefully. An outer disciple of the Qinghua Mountain actually dares to speak to me in this manner? Hand it over. The expert from the King's Manor, Shang Xian, had a cultivation base at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper, and was the grandson of the old king. It was just that the position of king had yet to be inherited by him, but given his status, why would he care about an outer disciple of the Qinghua Mountain? Su Feng's countenance was incredibly unsightly to behold, after which, he unwillingly handed over the constellation fruit. Humph! Shang Xian kept the constellation fruit with a wave of his hand as he coldly glanced at Su Feng. Senior, we'll meet again in the future. Su Feng clasped his hands as he coldly spoke. After which, he and Ji Shui turned and departed together, their hearts filled with an intense hatred. Senior, what is this 10,000 miles tracking mirror they spoke of? Ji Shui asked Su Feng. This treasure can track the aura of a person, locking onto their location. When Qin Wentian battled, he left behind traces of his aura. Hence, they were able to use this treasure to track him down. Su Feng replied, his words causing Ji Shui's countenance to stiffen. Doesn't that mean Brother Qin is in danger? That would depend on his good fortune. This time around he snatched away 7 constellation fruits under the noses of so many geniuses, and even killed so many people. How could the major powers of the Xian King city not be enraged? They would definitely not spare him. Su Feng's words caused Ji Shui to feel a trace of worry in her heart. Would the young man in white with unparalleled talent be able to escape this calamity? Just like what those people had predicted, although Qin Wentian's divine inscription scrolls could allow him to teleport, he was after all only a 4th-rank divine inscriptionist. It was extremely taxing for him to inscribe divine inscriptions, and he could only teleport a few hundred miles away in a random direction. But even so, it was sufficient to shake off those people. On a mountain slope about 400 miles away from those people, abruptly spatial fluctuations could be felt as a white-robed silhouette appeared. It was none other than Qin Wentian. At this moment, his aura was fluctuating wildly, and his white robes were stained with blood. His body exuded an aura of weakness, yet his eyes shone with a brilliant light. His pitch-black pupils were as resplendent as the constellations in the night sky. This place is only a few hundred miles away. I have to continue advancing. If not, I'll be easily tracked. Qin Wentian silently mused as his silhouette flickered. Although he teleported a few hundred miles away in an instant, given the speed of a 5th-level Heavenly Dipper Sovereign, a distance of 500 miles wasn't a problem. However, even Qin Wentian himself didn't know where he was. It would be extremely difficult for them to track him, but for the sake of caution, he chose a direction and continued advancing. A few hours later, Qin Wentian arrived at a desolate mountain. He sat down cross-legged as Little Rascal squatted beside him and spat out a constellation fruit. This was none other than the constellation fruit that contained a powerful mandate of demons. If it's useful to you, just eat it. Qin Wentian spoke to Little Rascal when he sensed the mandate of demons. Yeah. Little Rascal nodded its head and actually chomped down on the constellation fruit, swallowing it whole. Qin Wentian also took out 6 constellation fruits. Because they had already been plucked, although the constellation fruit still contained a powerful mandate of demons within, they wouldn't be able to attack him. 2 spatial constellation fruits. These belonged to Qing'er. I'm afraid she wouldn't be able to find me in a short period of time. Qin Wentian kept the spatial constellation fruit as he glanced at the other 4 constellation fruits that contained the mandate of Great Earth, as well as the one that caused the hearts of those who looked at it to pound wildly. Such a powerful mandate of demons. Although it isn't the mandate I cultivate, I can still comprehend it frequently. Qin Wentian kept the constellation fruits. After the consecutive battles, his body was extremely weak. It wasn't the time for him to comprehend the constellation fruits yet. You swallowed that crimson-eyed demonic beast. Purgatory, will it be able to return? Qin Wentian gently stroked Little Rascal's head. Little Rascal nodded its head as it squeaked, causing a gentle smile to flicker in Qin Wentian's eyes. Purgatory, was it about to appear? Retrieving a pile of Yuan meteor stones, he placed them on the ground as he casually laid down on the ground, entering the dreamscape to cultivate. The rate at which he could absorb astral energy would be even faster. As night descended, the heavenly mountain range was filled with moisture. Astral light flashed as several beams of astral light cascaded downwards, absorbed by the silhouette lying on the ground. In the blink of an eye, the night passed. The mountain range was so quiet that it was terrifying. When Qin Wentian opened his eyes, he saw 2 silhouettes beside him. Other than Little Rascal, there was also a purgatory vermilion bird. Upon seeing Qin Wentian opening his eyes, the purgatory vermilion bird let out a long screech as it soared into the air. Qin Wentian inclined his head, only to see the purgatory vermilion bird circling above his head unceasingly, as though it was extremely excited. After a long time, it landed on his shoulder and flapped its gigantic wings, causing Qin Wentian's body to waver unstably, causing him to smile bitterly. Little Rascal, well done. Qin Wentian glanced at Little Rascal in front of him. Little Rascal leaped up and landed on his thighs, wagging its tail and raising its head. That complacent look on its face made it seem as though it was asking for credit. Busy. But at this instant, a ferocious might erupted forth from the purgatory vermilion bird. It soared into the air, staring at the horizon as it let out a long screech. Qin Wentian furrowed his brows as his perception gushed forth. After which, several silhouettes appeared in his perception. Lingering ghosts. A cold light flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes. He didn't expect these people to be able to find him here. His silhouette flickered as he shot forth like an arrow, instantly appearing in the distance. Ahead of him, the 6 heavens chosen brought many experts with them as they inclined their heads and stared at him. Do you think you can survive? Shang-Chi coldly snorted. Their bodies split up as the sword intent radiating from Qin Wentian churned unceasingly. But at this moment, a terrifying sealing energy suddenly erupted forth from a middle-aged man. In this vast space, a screen of light seemed to have appeared around him. Not good. Qin Wentian abruptly turned his gaze onto the middle-aged man. That middle-aged man had actually concealed his aura, and under his perception, he was actually a 7th-level Heavenly Dipper Sovereign. Not only that, this sealing energy seemed to have isolated this entire space. Chapter 497. Qin Wentian's countenance grew incredibly unsightly as he stared at the middle-aged man before him. He naturally knew that the middle-aged man had a treasure that could seal this entire space, and had intentionally prepared it for him. Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he rapidly retreated. He could already sense the existence of that sealing energy. With a wave of his palms, a beam of sword light slashed out, causing spatial ripples to appear. The sword light seemed to have slashed onto a layer of light, unable to cause any damage to it at all. It's useless, Yinting coldly spoke. This was an extremely powerful treasure of their Yin clan. This time around they had taken it out to deal with him. How could they allow him to escape? I've said it before, you won't be able to escape. Shang-Chi walked forward as he coldly spoke. The geniuses from the 6 transcendent powers were all present. Not a single one was missing. They closed in step by step, staring at Qin Wentian. In their eyes, Qin Wentian could sense a clear killing intent. Evidently, all of them wanted Qin Wentian to die. Qin Wentian didn't expect that the other party would be able to find him. Not only that, they even prepared such a powerful treasure for him. In that case, it wasn't a coincidence that they were able to track him down. The purgatory vermilion bird let out a baleful roar as its body blazed with purgatory flames. Only now did those experts turn serious as they stared at the purgatory vermilion bird. Their hearts were filled with shock. The demonic beasts on this person's body were all extremely strange. That snowy dog could change its size at will. And at this moment, there was actually a purgatory vermilion bird that exuded a terrifying aura. Qin Wentian glanced at the purgatory vermilion bird. He could sense how powerful its aura was. His heart was filled with shock as well. Seems like after Little Rascal swallowed that crimson-eyed demonic beast, purgatory grew even stronger. Little Rascal was extremely intelligent. It naturally understood the situation Qin Wentian was in right now. It opened its beak and spat out astral light into the air. Momentarily, the astral light drifted through the air, transforming into a nebula. Upon seeing this scene, the middle-aged man's eyes flashed with coldness. Kill that little demon. Yes. Behind him, several people walked towards the direction of Little Rascal. Qin Wentian retreated, blocking the way. Those people halted their steps. Fear could be seen in their eyes. The scene of Qin Wentian's slaughter was still vivid in their minds. They didn't dare to offend this fiend. You seem to have a lot of spare time. A 7th-level Heavenly Dipper sovereign stepped out. However, the purgatory vermilion bird's silhouette flickered as it appeared in front of Qin Wentian, blocking his path. The baleful light in its eyes caused the hearts of those who saw it to tremble. The 6 heavens chosen all moved in the direction of Qin Wentian. This time around, all of them released their astral novas at the same time, their auras surging with power. They wouldn't give Qin Wentian the slightest chance. In the battle yesterday, Xie was almost killed by Qin Wentian. He couldn't be careless when fighting with this person. If you had handed it over yesterday, you might have been spared from death. But now there's only one path in front of you. Feng Yunhe coldly spoke. Such a situation was truly hopeless. There was no blood pool here, and Qin Wentian naturally wouldn't be able to use the immortal vanquishing swordplay. He only had one option left, and that was to transform into a great rock once more, using the body of a great rock to slaughter everyone here. The nebula in the air converged as a celestial phenomenon manifested. This scene caused a strange light to flash in Qin Wentian's eyes. Back then, Little Rascal had devoured the ancient formation of the vermilion bird. Now that the purgatory formation spirit had awakened, could it be that it would spit out the ancient formation and allow purgatory to control it? I have to buy some time for Little Rascal, Qin Wentian mused in his heart. The power of his bloodline surged forth once more. Yesterday, he had yet to fully recover from the usage of his bloodline power. Now that he was burning his bloodline with all his might, Qin Wentian suddenly felt as though he had surpassed the limits of his endurance. However, he had no other choice, he could only fight. The nebula in the air transformed into astral light that cascaded down onto the body of the purgatory vermilion bird, causing the flames on its body to grow even more terrifying. This scene caused the countenance of that expert to freeze as he spoke in a low voice, "Kill that vile creature quickly." As the sound of his voice faded, he lunged towards the purgatory vermilion bird. With a swipe of his palm, a terrifying palm imprint of lightning manifested in the air. enveloping the gigantic body of the purgatory vermilion bird as the might of thunder and lightning within it erupted forth. Purgatory howled in rage as purgatory flames erupted from its body, rushing towards the gigantic palm imprint. In an instant they collided with each other, causing a terrifying might to engulf this entire space. At the same time, the six chosen all launched their attacks towards Qin Wentian. As for the others, they all focused on Little Rascal, launching their own sneak attacks. Qin Wentian's astral nova erupted forth as his demonic blood boiled. His demonic armor covered his body, giving him the appearance of a demon king. Whoever dares to step forward die, Qin Wentian roared. Stomping on the ground, sword chi howled as it slashed down. Why wouldn't I dare? Jian Jingtian roared as his sword chi shook the heavens. Similarly, he unleashed his astral nova, slamming out with his palms as rows of sharp swords whistled through the air. At the same time, the heaven-shocking sword slashed out, shaking mountains and rivers as it slashed towards Qin Wentian. Boom! Qin Wentian continuously stepped forward, as the might of the seven slaughter sword soared to the extreme. Do it! Shang-Chi coldly commanded. Momentarily, the other experts all rushed towards Little Rascal. Qin Wentian stomped on the ground again as his sword chi soared to a terrifying degree. His silhouette directly vanished, reappearing in the middle of the group of experts as he took his fifth step. Boundless sword intent swept out in all directions as his astral nova slashed out. Instantly, fresh blood splattered as the others all retreated in all directions. Boom! The heartbreak ancient bell caused the hearts of those who heard it to tremble. At the same time, Qin Wentian took his sixth step, causing all the experts present to feel as though they were completely suppressed by the sword. Light sounds of splattering rang out as one of them directly transformed into a rain of blood. At the same time, muffled groans rang out unceasingly as one expert after another collapsed. On the other side, Shang-Chi and the others all rushed towards Little Rascal. Feng Yunhe's speed was the fastest. His sharp claws directly smashed downwards, yet Little Rascal continued spitting out astral light as its body turned golden. Bang! The sharp claws slammed into its body. Little Rascal tumbled a few times before crawling back to its feet, and continued to spit out astral energy. The astral energy permeated the air, enveloping Purgatory's body. This Little Rascal can really endure. Xiaoyu coldly spoke. His 9 arms transformed into towering fist might that blasted into Little Rascal's body. Rumbling sounds rang out as a terrifying might gushed into Little Rascal's body. Little Rascal's body flickered, yet it was still struck by the boundless fist light and was flung through the air, coughing out a mouthful of fresh blood. Its eyes were filled with baleful intent. It inclined its head and continued to spit out astral light. It was as though it was the same as Qin Wentian, possessing an intense obsession. Qin Wentian's killing intent soared to the extreme when he saw this scene. Stepping out, this was already his 7th step. The astral nova in his hands danced about, as though he was infused with boundless rage. Those who were still alive in the surroundings were all pierced through by the sword chi, their throats lacerated by the sound of the sword as they died. However, these heaven-chosen didn't feel any pain in their hearts at all. It was as though these people weren't their subordinates. The threat of the 7 annihilation swordplay was too great. Right now, he had already unleashed it once. He couldn't unleash the 7th strike of the 7 annihilation swordplay a second time. Are you going to die or not? Xiaoyu wasn't willing to spare Little Rascal. Once again, he blasted out a towering fist light towards Little Rascal. Each of his punches contained the might of the earth, as well as the sharpness of metal. How could Qin Wentian endure this? After killing the people here, he immediately activated stellar transposition and appeared beside Xiaoyu. The center of his brows glowed with a bright light as it shot into Xiaoyu's sea of consciousness. His astral nova directly flew out, aiming for Xiaoyu's head. However, at this moment, Shang-Chi's silhouette appeared in front of him. A blood-colored palm imprint with a hint of golden light blasted out, as the power of his regenerative bloodline surged forth, slamming into Little Rascal's astral nova. Little Rascal was sent tumbling through the air from the impact of Xiaoyu's fist. At this moment, the silhouettes of several experts appeared outside this space. These people all exuded extraordinary auras, and none of them had appeared before this. They had been maintaining a distance from the group of people in front of them, so as to not alarm Qin Wentian and allow him to escape using a scroll. Only now did they catch up. BZ. A spatial fluctuation gushed out as the sealing energy in this space was broken apart. The silhouettes of those experts flickered as they directly rushed over. Just when Qin Wentian realized what was happening, the sealing energy appeared once more, sealing this space. Taking advantage of the time when he couldn't activate the spatial scroll, the other party allowed the other experts to enter. Qin Wentian swept his gaze over the cultivation bases of these experts as his countenance turned pale. This was a hopeless situation. The weakest among these people was at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper. There was basically no hope at all. Demonic chi gushed forth from his body as his ancient will reached the heavens. Only the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation could resolve this crisis. However, at the next instant, Qin Wentian's countenance turned deathly pale. The demonic divinity's sacrificial transformation was unable to be activated. The sealing energy in this space wasn't just pure spatial energy. It was a spatial seal that sealed all connections with the outside world. The sealing energy within the treasure made it so that he had no way to form an innate connection with the constellations and borrow the power of the demonic divinities from the 8 directions. Knowing that it was impossible, Qin Wentian instantly gave up. His silhouette flickered as he appeared before Little Rascal. Those heavens chosen weren't in a hurry to act. Their gazes were filled with mockery as they stared at Qin Wentian. As for those experts who came over, they all stood in different directions. Qin Wentian was already in a hopeless situation. Little Rascal, if I die here, bring purgatory back to Grand Xia. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. If he used the immortal vanquishing swordplay in such a state, he would die without a doubt. But now he had no other choice. Roar! Little Rascal let out a low-sounding roar as it shook its head frenziedly. It was still frenziedly spitting out astral energy. If you die, do you still want them to leave? These 2 demonic beasts are actually not bad mounts. There's even a vermilion bird among them. Shang-Chi's eyes gleamed with sharpness. Could it be that Qin Wentian still wanted to protect this demonic beast? Wasn't this a little too ridiculous? Settle this vermilion bird first. Its aura is growing stronger. At this moment, the expert who was fighting against the vermilion bird spoke. A moment later, several experts dashed towards the vermilion bird. The body of the vermilion bird burned with a terrifying intensity, as though it wanted to burn everything away. With a sharp screech, it abruptly turned and spat out purgatory flames in the direction of Shang-Chi and the others. Careful! The others all shouted. Shang-Chi and the others hurriedly retreated while the vermilion bird lunged towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian, whose sword chi was still permeating the air, directly fell to the ground. Qin Wentian initially wanted to unleash the immortal vanquishing swordplay, yet he was interrupted by Purgatory. Purgatory didn't allow him to unleash this attack. Purgatory! Qin Wentian roared in rage. However, he only saw the Purgatory vermilion bird's wings wrapping around his body. The baleful eyes of the Purgatory vermilion bird flickered with a hint of gentleness. It was born because of Qin Wentian. How could it witness Qin Wentian's death the moment it appeared in this world? It Purgatory wouldn't agree to this. Chapter 498. As to why Qin Wentian dared to use the immortal vanquishing swordplay despite the consequences, it was because he cultivated the great Nirvana immortal art, and had another body in the royal tomb of Grand Xia. The comprehension of that body was equivalent to Qin Wentian's own body comprehending the immortal vanquishing swordplay. Hence, even if one of his bodies perished, he wouldn't die. Naturally, Qin Wentian regarded his true body with extreme importance. If it wasn't for the fact that he had no other choice, how would he want to perish? But now that he was surrounded by the experts from the various major powers, he was already in a hopeless situation. Either he died together or he died to protect Little Rascal in Purgatory. Under such circumstances, he naturally would rather choose to die himself. But even if he was willing to sacrifice himself, Purgatory wouldn't agree. To Purgatory, Qin Wentian was its everything. Hence, after knowing what Qin Wentian wanted to do, Purgatory directly pressed him and Little Rascal beneath it. After which, it spread out its wings, protecting the two of them. Its eyes gleamed with a ferocious light as it stared at everyone. Purgatory, let me out. Qin Wentian roared, but Purgatory didn't seem to hear it. It tightly protected Qin Wentian under its body, its powerful might causing Qin Wentian to have no way to break free. What a loyal demonic beast. Why don't you follow me? An expert walked over, staring at Purgatory. Purgatory opened its mouth and spat out a Purgatory lotus, frenziedly flying over. That expert snorted coldly and stretched out his palm, causing the space around him to freeze, colliding with the Purgatory lotus. After which both attacks shattered. The other experts all walked over, staring coldly at the Purgatory vermilion bird. In such a desperate situation, you still want to protect your master? As a vermilion bird, you are one of the 8 demonic gods. Leave with me, I won't mistreat you. Another expert walked over, wanting to subdue Purgatory, yet what welcomed him was still a towering Purgatory flame. You don't know what's good for you. That expert snorted coldly as he launched an attack. Since I can't tame this demon, I'll just kill it. Its flames are useful to me. One of the experts from the Golden Fire Aristocrat clan coldly spoke, after which, he abruptly pointed a finger towards Purgatory. At the same time, the Ice Elemental expert stepped forth and slammed out with a palm imprint, freezing everything in its path as it slammed into Purgatory. Purgatory's body shuddered violently, but she remained motionless. This evil creature is really persistent. I really want to tame it. Unfortunately, it's so foolishly loyal. Another attack landed, each with a force of 1,000,000 Jin, causing Purgatory's body to tremble violently as she spat out a mouthful of blood. Even Qin Wentian, who was standing on the ground, could feel the strength of the shockwave. However, it was completely absorbed by Purgatory, and only a trace of the shockwave was transmitted to his body. Purgatory. Qin Wentian's eyes were scarlet red as he howled in rage. However, Purgatory didn't seem to hear him at all. It only had a single thought in its mind. Qin Wentian must not die. As long as it was around, Qin Wentian would be around as well. Although Little Rascal was being protected by Purgatory, it was still frenziedly spitting out astral energy. Its eyes were scarlet red, gleaming with an ominous light. Boom! A bolt of lightning smashed down, scorching the earth. Purgatory coughed out blood as cracks could be seen on its body. Fool, as expected of a vile creature. To think that you still refuse to step aside. A mocking voice rang out, after which another powerful attack slammed down. Purgatory silently endured it, but the injuries on its body grew heavier and heavier. Scram! Qin Wentian used his immense strength, wanting to force Purgatory's body apart. However, he discovered that Purgatory's defense was extremely firm, not budging an inch. The spectators outside stared at the gigantic body of Purgatory. The number of injuries on its body increased, yet it still coiled there, protecting Qin Wentian. It was as though it was telling the spectators that if they wanted to kill Qin Wentian, they had to step over its corpse first. Roar! Qin Wentian's roars rang out as a terrifying demonic qi gushed forth frenziedly. The blood in Qin Wentian's body seemed to be going berserk as a fearsome demonic energy gushed forth. It was as though his will of the mandate of demons had grown even stronger, as though it had stepped into the transformation boundary of the 2nd level. However, at this moment, Qin Wentian didn't feel any excitement at all. He only wanted to push Purgatory away. But even if his strength increased explosively, it was useless. Purgatory wouldn't leave even if it died. The spectators outside stood there, not continuing their attacks. Right now, they were all stunned by Purgatory's loyalty. Under such a barrage of attacks, if it was an ordinary demonic beast, it would have died countless times already. However, the Purgatory vermilion bird continued to protect Qin Wentian. This was its conviction. Qin Wentian was even more important than its own life. Staring at the weakening aura of the Purgatory vermilion bird, the countenances of the spectators grew incredibly unsightly. This demonic beast's defense is truly strong. Even that little bastard is the same, we can't kill it no matter what. In fact, they even felt somewhat jealous of Qin Wentian for having 2 demonic beasts as his companions. Strong and loyal. Continue attacking. Since it cannot be tamed, we can only kill it. A cold voice rang out. The spectators were all extremely depressed. They actually couldn't even kill a single demonic beast. Yes. An expert nodded. After that, he stepped forth, appearing before Purgatory. He lifted his palm as a terrifying energy gushed forth. His fingers seemed to be imbued with a golden sword that could penetrate through everything. Pressing down with a single finger, he shot towards Purgatory. But right at this moment, the weak and silent Purgatory suddenly erupted with a terrifying might. Buzz! The huge body of the Purgatory vermilion bird moved. In an instant it spat out a Purgatory fire lotus, directly engulfing that expert. Arc! The blink of an eye. The expert's body was burned to ashes. Below Purgatory a shocking scene appeared. It was unknown how much astral light little rascal had spat out, but Purgatory had been continuously swallowing it, accumulating energy. It didn't use any energy to resist, it was accumulating energy to attack. Not wanting to waste the slightest bit of energy, these astral lights floated in the air, cascading onto Purgatory's body. Other than this, Qin Wentian's wrist had already been sliced open. His fingers pierced into Purgatory's body as fresh blood flowed from his wrist, seeping into Purgatory's body. Earlier, he was feeding Purgatory the power of his bloodline. Qin Wentian's eyes gleamed with coldness, piercing into the eyes of those who looked at him. Such coldness could freeze the bodies of those who looked at him. Just a single glance from him was sufficient to cause despair in their hearts. Purgatory let out a long howl as it frenziedly spat out more hellfire, sweeping through the entire space. Yet another person was incinerated, his body completely unextinguished. Go! With a loud shout, everyone hurriedly retreated. However, they only saw Purgatory rushing out, its hellfire sweeping through everything. Qin Wentian followed behind it, his blood still flowing into Purgatory's body. Purgatory unleashed its ferocious might. The experts from the various powers hurriedly brought their own geniuses and retreated. Release the seal! A loud shout rang out. The experts from the Yin clan released the seal, allowing the Purgatory vermilion bird to continue rushing forward. Leave quickly! The expressions of those experts turned extremely ugly to behold as they hurriedly fled. They didn't expect that the Purgatory vermilion bird would suddenly become so violent. The Purgatory vermilion bird didn't chase after them. Its aura was rapidly weakening, but it still floated in the air, staring at the fleeing experts. Qin Wentian stood below Purgatory, the blood in his body seethed madly. Not long ago, when he was in a frenzied state, he could faintly sense that there was another kind of terrifying power within his demonic bloodline. It was just that he hadn't activated it yet, hence, he decided to channel the power of his bloodline into Purgatory's body. However, in order to protect Qin Wentian, Purgatory didn't use any of its energy to attack. It didn't care about its life at all, only focusing on accumulating energy. This was why after Qin Wentian channeled the power of his bloodline into its body, in addition to the combined efforts of it and Little Rascal, it was able to ignite its own energy and unleash such a terrifying combat prowess. However, Qin Wentian understood that this was merely a flash in the pan. Purgatory had almost exhausted all of its energy. Boo! Purgatory's body fell downwards. Its entire body was incomparably weak. It no longer had any strength left. Qin Wentian hugged its body as that gigantic body pressed down on him. Purgatory's eyes were still open as it stared at Qin Wentian with a gentle smile on its face. It had done it, it had protected Qin Wentian from death. In that case, everything it had done was worth it. Staring at the smile in Purgatory's eyes, Qin Wentian felt pain in his heart. Purgatory was a demonic spirit. Protecting him was its strongest obsession. If he was born, it would be born. If it wanted him to die, it would die first. This was the love of demonic spirits. How many people in the mortal world could compare to it? Because it was born because of him. In that case, it would also die because of him. Little Rascal flew over. Its eyes were red as well, filled with tears. It was sentient and similarly contained intense emotions. It had always depended on Qin Wentian for survival. After that, it devoured Purgatory and gained emotions. But Qin Wentian was their only protector. Purgatory was the same as it. It was willing to give up its life to protect him. Qin Wentian stared at the two demonic beasts, feeling warmth in his heart. But when he thought of what happened earlier, his heart ached again. In this life I won't let you down. Qin Wentian stared at the two demonic beasts. His eyes were moist, but a warm smile could be seen on his face. He then spoke to Purgatory. My bloodline is able to give birth to demons. Purgatory, enter my bloodline first. As he spoke, his hands landed on Purgatory's body. In an instant, Purgatory's body was directly absorbed into his bloodline. Purgatory's body entered his bloodline, circulating within his body. Little Rascal's eyes brightened. Its heart was similarly moved. In this life I won't let you down. Yeah. A light sound rang out as Little Rascal soared up into the air. A pair of wings appeared on its back as it floated in the air. It lowered its head and stared at the horizon as it called out, Qin Wentian. This voice was extremely childish and unclear, but Qin Wentian's eyes gleamed with a resplendent light. He inclined his head and stared at the silhouette in the air as the smile in his eyes grew even more intense. This was the first time Little Rascal spoke. Qin Wentian. His eyes slowly turned over, staring in the direction of Xian King City. The smile on his face vanished, replaced by a cold light. This hatred shall be repaid with blood. Chapter 499. Atop the desolate mountain, the white-robed young man's robes were dyed red with blood. His eyes gleamed with a cold light, causing the temperature of the entire space to drop drastically. Xian King City, all the geniuses were waiting. With a flicker of his silhouette, Qin Wentian carried Little Rascal in his arms as he sped away like the wind. Evidently he couldn't stay here any longer. Now that Purgatory had been absorbed into his bloodline, it would be able to recuperate within his bloodline. Qin Wentian also didn't know why his ancient demonic bloodline would suddenly have a different kind of ability. He could only speculate that this might have something to do with the immortal vanquishing swordplay he had absorbed earlier. The blood in the pool was incinerated by the immortal vanquishing swordplay, and some of it was absorbed by his bloodline, stimulating his demonic bloodline, causing it to become even more violent. This was also the reason why he was able to step into the transformation realm of the second level of demons so quickly. Lowering his head, he stared at the injured Little Rascal in his arms only to see Little Rascal tilting its head upwards as it spoke in a baby voice. Little Rascal. Yes, Little Rascal. When Qin Wentian heard this voice, the dark clouds in his heart seemed to have dispersed. A gentle smile appeared on his face as he gently stroked Little Rascal's head. Don't, like, Juan. Little Rascal's lips twitched as it shook its head. This was the first time it used its human voice to express its dissatisfaction towards the name Qin Wentian gave it. Aha, I've already gotten used to it after so long. Qin Wentian lightly flicked Little Rascal's head. Momentarily, Little Rascal furrowed its brows as a look of grievance flashed in its eyes. After learning how to speak, Little Rascal was becoming more and more human-like. The silhouettes of a man and a demonic beast gradually faded away, leaving this desolate mountain range as they headed towards the depths of the heavenly mountain range. In the Xian King City, there were many rumors circulating around. It was rumored that during the Heavenly Mountain Treasure Seizing Assembly, a young man in white appeared. This young man claimed that his surname was Qin and that he snatched away Shang Yu's spatial brush, humiliated Yin Chang and Jin Zhan, and was incomparably arrogant. After that, he inscribed divine inscriptions and killed Grandmaster Qiu. Not only so, it was rumored that a mysterious realm had appeared. In this mysterious realm, the geniuses of the various major powers led their experts to explore it, and discovered that the mysterious realm was actually the burial ground of a legendary expert. The celestial constellation fruit trees were born there, and the various major powers fought over it. However, this young man surnamed Qin suddenly appeared out of nowhere and fought against all the experts, killing more than half of them. He even fought against the combined forces of 6 geniuses, and after that, he managed to escape unscathed with half of the celestial constellation fruits. What was even more shocking was that this young man's cultivation base was only at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper. For him, the Heavenly Rock Aristocrat clan brought out the 10,000 miles tracking mirror, the Yin clan brought out a sealing treasure, and the experts from the Heavenly Rock Aristocrat clan once again tried to find the young man in white. However, all of them returned in low spirits with heavy casualties. There were even 2 experts at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper who died. As for what exactly happened in that battle, nobody knew. But that young man in white who had never appeared before in the Xian King City was rumored to have 3 heads and 6 arms. As for the young man in white right now, he was still bitterly cultivating in the heavenly mountain range. In the depths of the heavenly mountain range, there was a wondrous scene. Qin Wentian sat on the peak of a mountain as he stared ahead. Over there snowflakes drifted about, and the endless mountain range was completely covered in ice and snow, exuding an extremely cold intent. This piece of land seemed to be separated into two parts. One part was covered in ice and snow, while the other was covered in ice and snow. There wasn't a single snowflake at all on Qin Wentian's side. Qin Wentian sat there cross-legged, holding two constellation fruits in his hands. One was a dark red fruit that could cause one's heart to throb, while the other was a fruit that contained the will of the mandate of Great Earth within it. He didn't directly swallow it. This fruit contained an intense mandate of Great Earth, allowing one to sense it unceasingly. If he directly swallowed it, there might be a miraculous effect, but after that, there would be nothing left. It was best to swallow it at the most crucial moment. Qin Wentian quietly held the constellation fruits in his hands. His heartbeat was extremely fast, yet there was a certain rhythm to it. With every heartbeat, every meridian in his body seemed to be pulsating along with it. And that great earth fruit could even allow him to sense the pulsation of the earth. It was as though the earth itself was beating just like his heartbeat. Qin Wentian entered a state of selflessness, fully immersing himself in sensing the pulsation of the earth, forgetting his own heartbeat as he entered an ethereal state. Following the pulsation of the earth, his perception unceasingly extended outwards. Gradually, the rate of his heartbeat slowed down. Gradually, it stabilized, no longer beating as intensely as before. It was as though his heartbeat had entered the same rhythm as the pulsation of the earth. This feeling was as though he was a part of the earth. His body had fused together with the earth. As his cultivation base grew stronger, Qin Wentian could even comprehend the mandate of Great Earth. But because he didn't have an astral soul of the mandate of Great Earth, there was no way for him to condense an astral nova. Even if he could comprehend it, the effect would be weaker compared to his own mandate of Great Earth. Not only that, he would require more time to cultivate. After all, right now, he was only able to enter this state because of the constellation fruits. After a long period of time, Qin Wentian's heartbeat was so calm that it almost stopped. Exhaling, he opened his eyes and stretched lazily, feeling extremely comfortable. The feeling of entering this state every day was simply too wonderful. It was as though the earth itself was his muscles, bones, blood, and flesh, pulsating along with his heartbeat. It's about time for my mandate of force to break through. Qin Wentian stood up and walked towards the mountain rampart. His perception extended outwards as he punched out with his fist. That seemingly calm punch slammed into the mountain rampart, causing a terrifying shockwave to rapidly extend outwards. The pulsation of the entire mountain rampart grew even more intense, and after which cracking sounds rang out as cracks appeared, resembling spiderwebs. Shatter. Qin Wentian's palms trembled as he lightly spoke. An instant later, a thunderous boom rang out as the mountain rampart in front of him was reduced to dust. A smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face as he spoke in a low voice. Indeed, the mandate of force and the mandate of Great Earth have some similarities. The second-level mandate of force I've comprehended is the void shockwave. Isn't that a type of pulsation as well? The pulsations of the mandate of force would be able to spread outwards, destroying everything in its path. Right now, my second-level mandate of force has also broken through to the transformation boundary. Right now, of the 4 types of mandates, the mandate of force, the mandate of demons, and the mandate of swords, had all broken through to the transformation boundary of the second level. As for the mandate of dreams, Ditian was currently cultivating the great dream immortal art in the royal tomb. He could faintly sense that his mandate of dreams was also on the verge of breaking through. Most probably, it wouldn't be long before all 4 of his mandates would break through to the transformation boundary of the second level. A bright light flashed as the scarlet demon halberd appeared in Qin Wentian's hands. His silhouette flickered as he stepped into the vast expanse of snow. Snow and ice drifted down from the skies as Qin Wentian pierced out with his halberd, seeking to find the strongest power in each of his halberd strikes. When he first stepped onto the path of cultivation, Qin Wentian already knew the tempered thousand-hammer refinement art. Any type of innate technique could be transformed into a qualitative one through quantitative changes. Right now he had many methods at his disposal, yet it was extremely difficult for him to fuse them all into one. achieving a perfect fusion point. For example, the halberd arts he had created in the past weren't suitable for the current him, they were too weak. However, what if he were to fuse his comprehensions and mandates into his halberd arts? He would definitely be able to unleash 10 to 100 times more power. But how could such a fusion be achieved so easily? This was a process of creation. He needed to continuously temper his halberd arts before he knew if there was a possibility of success. The boundless snowflakes brought with them a bone-piercing chill, yet it was as though the white-robed young man couldn't sense it at all. From start to end, he was clad in a thin white robe, as though he wanted to fuse as one with the snowflakes. Only the halberd arts he executed seemed to be perfecting themselves. A day passed. 7 days passed. In the blink of an eye, 9 days passed. The white-robed young man was still the same as before. He had already lost count of how many halberd strikes he had executed, but right now, he could already unleash his halberd strikes soundlessly. It wasn't that there was no sound, it was just that the speed of his attacks was simply too fast. The silhouette of the white-robed young man flickered as he stared at the snowy mountain in front of him. Stepping out, his halberd slashed out like a dragon, causing the surrounding snowflakes to freeze. As the halberd landed, there was still no sound. However, the snowy mountain started to crumble inch by inch as the power of his halberd seeped into it. Terrifying rumbling sounds rang out as the entire snowy mountain collapsed. As for the area where the halberd landed, everything was turned into dust. Still not strong enough. My strongest void formation ripples destroyed the pulsation of the entire mountain in a single strike. Qin Wentian furrowed his brows, as though he was still unsatisfied. After which, he brandished his scarlet demon halberd again and again. In the blink of an eye, another 7 days passed. Snowflakes continued to fall. On the snowy ground, little rascal was sprawled on the ground, as though he was one with the snow. Behind them, atop a snowy mountain, a figure as beautiful as a snow lotus had unknowingly appeared there, quietly observing the white-robed young man as he practiced his halberd strikes. Several hours later, the white-robed young man stopped once again. In his eyes, a hint of a smile could be seen. My mandate of dreams has reached the transformation boundary of the second level. Qin Wentian smiled. Right now, all 4 of his mandates had stepped into the transformation boundary of the second level. If he encountered the 6 chosen again, Qin Wentian would definitely be able to kill them all. Even if the 6 of them ganged up on him, it would be the same. One must know that a few days ago, when he fought against the 6 chosen, his greatest reliance was his sword. The 7 annihilation swordplay. His mandate of swords was only at the transformation boundary. Now he had 4 different mandates. As though he had sensed something, Qin Wentian turned and saw the silhouette atop the snowy mountain. His eyes that were as bright as the stars in the night sky involuntarily brightened. Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he appeared on the snowy mountain. That cold silhouette stared at him, her eyes gleaming with intelligence, yet she still didn't like to speak. These 2 constellation fruits are the mandate of space, they should be useful to you. Qin Wentian passed the fruits over to Qing. Qing glanced at them, but she didn't stretch her hands out. Qing, take them. Qin Wentian commanded. Oh. Qing replied in a crisp voice as she stretched her hands out to receive the constellation fruits. However, the expression on her face was still the same. It was unknown what she was thinking in her heart. I'm leaving. Qin Wentian turned. His silhouette flickered as he stepped into the vast expanse of ice and snow once again. Staring at his back, the lines on Qing face twitched as a smile appeared on her face. This smile of hers seemed to be able to melt all the ice and snow in this world. Chapter 500. Qin Wentian returned to the snowy ground, brandishing his scarlet demon halberd unceasingly. Sometimes there was only a single movement, but he would consecutively brandish the halberd hundreds of times, or even thousands of times. He was constantly adjusting himself, improving himself. Little rascal continued to lay there, watching. Qing also stood there quietly. She didn't participate in that battle and only found Qin Wentian after that. However, she could faintly sense that Qin Wentian must have experienced something. His love, his hate, all of these would transform into his actions, becoming his obsessions, causing him to use all methods to improve himself. Qin Wentian was such a person. In this world, Other than the 16-year-old Qin Wentian, Qin Chuan and Qin Yao were the ones who accompanied Qin Wentian the most. The one who stayed by his side the longest after he started cultivating was none other than Qin Er. Although the amount of time Qin Er spent by Qin Wentian's side wasn't very long, Qin Er knew all of his actions. There were many things Qin Er didn't understand because no one had taught her before. But with regards to Qin Wentian, she understood him very well. She understood his habits and understood his obsessions. Lowering her head, she stared at the constellation fruit in her hands. Her beautiful eyes flickered as a warm current flowed through her heart. It was very rare for her to have such a feeling, but this time around she felt it. It was as though many of the things she had done were all worth it. Under thousands of tempering, Qin Wentian's halberd arts grew stronger and stronger. If someone fought against him, they would even see illusions when he struck out with his halberd. After several days, Qin Wentian finally stopped his halberd practice. He sat on the snowy ground and took out the dark red constellation fruit. This constellation fruit was able to cause one's heart to palpitate unceasingly. In fact, it was able to allow him to sense each and every part of his body. The mandate contained within it was akin to the will of the heart. This kind of energy, if I can infuse it into the Heartbreak Ancient Bell, the might of the Heartbreak Ancient Bell would surely be even more terrifying, Qin Wentian mused. After which, he closed his eyes and quietly contemplated. Within the royal tomb, Di Tian was also cultivating. Both of them were cultivating and comprehending at the same time. Qin Wentian improved day by day, growing stronger and stronger. In the night, the snowflakes continued to fall unceasingly. A white-robed silhouette quietly laid in the midst of the snow. From the heavens, resplendent beams of light cascaded downwards, as though there were 4 constellations shooting out beams of light that landed on Qin Wentian's body. The energy from the constellations unceasingly flowed into his body, and within his Yuanfu, his astral nova slowly solidified. During the day, he would wake up again to cultivate. How many days and nights had he passed like this, as though he would never know fatigue? At a place extremely far away from Qin Wentian, a few silhouettes could be seen flying through the air. The person in the lead was an old man who looked extremely ordinary, around 50 years of age. He didn't exude any aura at all, but his eyes were filled with spirit. His hair was as white as snow, causing him to be even more compatible with this place. To think that there's actually a little child cultivating here. The old man mumbled in a low voice. His gaze seemed to be able to penetrate through space, landing on Qin Wentian, who was currently cultivating on the snowy ground. With a casual smile, the old man continued walking. But an instant later, he halted his steps, as a serious expression flickered in his eyes. Interesting, his second-level mandate has already reached the transformation boundary, yet his cultivation base is only at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper. This old man was able to see through Qin Wentian with a single glance. Although he was spying on Qin Wentian didn't seem to notice his existence at all. Looking at his age, he should be around 25 years of age. It's already extremely rare for his cultivation base to reach this level. Not only that, his mandate is also so powerful, much stronger compared to the disciples chosen by those good-for-nothing fellows. The old man shook his head, feeling somewhat depressed as he continued on his way. His silhouette was like a gust of wind, bringing the person beside him with him as he sped past not far away from Qin Wentian. And at this moment, Qin Wentian, who was in the midst of his cultivation, suddenly furrowed his brows as he halted his steps. Wielding the scarlet demon halberd in his hands, he stared in the direction of the old man as he coldly asked, "Who's spying on me?" The old man abruptly halted his steps, his gaze piercing through space as a smile appeared on his face. Interesting, a little fellow at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper was actually able to discover me. Stepping out, his silhouette instantly appeared in front of Qin Wentian. As he stared at Qin Wentian with interest, Qin Wentian's countenance flickered. With the lesson from last time, he was now exceptionally vigilant. However, as he swept his gaze over, he couldn't help but feel astonishment in his heart. He couldn't see through the cultivation base of this old man at all. With a single glance, he could tell that this old man was just an ordinary old man. Beside him were 2 attendants that resembled children, and both of them were extremely powerful as well. Qin Wentian had no way to resist an expert of this level. He could only hope that this old man wasn't someone from the powers that the Six Chosen belonged to. In Qin Wentian's hands, a scroll had already appeared. What a vigilant fellow! Are you afraid that I will eat you up? The old man laughed as he stared at Qin Wentian. However, Qin Wentian didn't dare to let his guard down. Little Rascal had already stealthily appeared beside him, and Qing was also moving closer. Junior has an enemy chasing after me, so I have no choice but to be more vigilant. Senior, who are you? Qin Wentian asked. Haha, what an interesting little doll. If I were your enemy, would you still have the chance to use the spatial scroll? The old man had a playful smile on his face. After which, he made a grabbing motion in the air, and instantly Qin Wentian's body was sealed in ice, unable to move at all. His body was directly lifted up into the air. Release him. Qing stepped out, her quick-witted eyes stared at the old man as she coldly spoke, as an intense cold intent gushed forth from her. Bastard! Little Rascal's silhouette flickered as he similarly appeared in front of Qin Wentian, glaring at the old man as a baleful light flashed in his eyes. However, this didn't match the childlike voice of Little Rascal. Qin Wentian's heart trembled. Such strength was simply too overwhelming. Indeed, given Little Rascal's strength, if it was someone from the Six Chosen Powers, they would have directly acted to kill him. He wouldn't even have the chance to use the spatial scroll. You dared to call this old man a bastard? The old man glared at Little Rascal as a baleful expression appeared on his face. How many years has it been since someone dared to scold this old man? Who would have thought that today a little demon would actually do so? You guys are blocking my path, aren't you afraid that I will kill all of you? Release him. Qing was still as cold as ever, as though she didn't know how strong this old man was. The old man scrutinized Qing as he laughed in a low voice. How interesting. Little doll. You are so beautiful and you're proficient in spatial energy. The energy stored within your body is extremely strong as well. Do you want to be my disciple? You're not worthy. Qin Wentian coldly spoke, causing the old man to glance at him as he giggled. I'm not worthy? Which part of me isn't worthy? As an old man, you're bullying the younger generation. What qualifications do you have to be the teacher of others? Qin Wentian coldly spoke. He was feeling extremely depressed as well. He was cultivating in this place and he actually met an old man who was also extremely powerful. Don't you know that strength is everything in this world? As long as you have strength, it's enough. The old man laughed as he stared at Qin Wentian. If choosing a master or disciple doesn't depend on one's character, only on strength and talent, as the teacher, if he is narrow-minded, how can he be willing to see his disciple surpass him? As for the disciple, if he doesn't remember the kindness of the master and only remembers the blame of the master, how can he not harbor hatred in his heart? It's only a matter of time before the master and disciple fall out with each other. Why is there a need to choose a master? Qin Wentian coldly spoke. I'm just a junior. I'm cultivating here peacefully. If I've offended senior, feel free to tell me. Why must you humiliate me just because you are stronger than me? What a sharp-tongued fellow. You want to provoke me into releasing you. The old man laughed as he stared at Qin Wentian, his words causing Qin Wentian's countenance to turn extremely unsightly. This old man didn't seem to be affected by his words. Fine, this old man will release you then. The old man spoke. With a wave of his palms, the pressure on Qin Wentian vanished. Little Rascal and Qi retreated back to Qin Wentian's side as they stared at the old man with vigilance. This old man's personality was extremely strange. He clearly knew that Qin Wentian was trying to provoke him, yet he still released Qin Wentian. To be able to make a demonic beast and a peerless beauty do such a thing for you, your character shouldn't be too bad. This old man will give you a chance to become my disciple. How about it? The old man stared at Qin Wentian as he smiled. If I reject, will senior make things difficult for me? Qin Wentian's eyes flashed as he asked. I won't say a single word and will leave immediately. But you should know that there are countless people who would beg for such an opportunity. The old man narrowed his eyes. Although he exuded the aura of a transcendent being, he looked like an old urchin. I refuse. As soon as the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wentian bluntly spat out 2 words, causing a look of astonishment to appear on the old man's face. Staring at Qin Wentian, The smile on his face disappeared as his countenance gradually sank. This was truly embarrassing. He wanted to accept a disciple but was actually rejected. If this news were to spread out, he would have nowhere to hide his old face. He opened his mouth but didn't say anything. Earlier he had said that if Qin Wentian rejected him, he wouldn't say a single word and would leave immediately. Turning around, the old man actually started to walk away. But after walking for a short distance, he suddenly halted. The person behind him turned around and stared at Qin Wentian as he asked, "This old man still wants to know the reason." Although these words were spoken by the little boy, Qin Wentian naturally understood that he was speaking on behalf of the old man. Since the old man agreed to not say anything, Qin Wentian naturally wouldn't say anything. But even so, he couldn't help but to ask. Hence, he transmitted his voice to the little boy beside him, asking him to speak on his behalf. "There's no reason I don't want to take a master. I can still cultivate by myself and grow through tempering," Qin Wentian faintly replied. "Is this considered a reason? Such an opportunity is something that countless people can only dream of." The old man seemed to be extremely depressed as he continued to speak through the little boy. "Senior, you really only think of yourself. Junior doesn't even know your identity. Just because you are strong, I want to take you as my master and follow you?" Qin Wentian's voice was ice cold as he continued. "If that's the case, isn't Senior looking down on the geniuses of this world too much? Even if Senior's strength is truly strong, this junior has only cultivated for less than 10 years and has already reached the transformation boundary of the second level. Although I don't dare to say that I'm outstanding, I don't want to belittle myself either. If I cultivated to Senior's age, how could I be at Senior's level?" Arrogant. This time the old man was the one who spoke, staring at Qin Wentian. But as the sound of his voice faded, he flicked his sleeves and directly departed. Chapter 501. Only after the old man left did Qin Wentian heave a sigh of relief. That old man was too strong and had an eccentric personality. Qin Wentian tried to goad him into joining and it actually worked. As for the words he said after that, half of it was to provoke the old man away, while the other half was from his heart. From the start of his cultivation till now, he had never met someone whose astral soul was more outstanding than his. And among those at the same cultivation level, he had never met someone whose combat prowess was stronger than his. Qin Wentian didn't dare to say that there were none in this world. After all, the world was too vast, so vast that he couldn't even see through it despite being at the peak of the third level of Heavenly Dipper. However, Qin Wentian at least had an intense confidence in himself. This was his conviction. Putting this matter aside, Qin Wentian brandished his scarlet demon halberd and continued his cultivation. Since it was a false alarm, nothing would be able to affect his state of heart and disrupt his cultivation. Right now, his cultivation base had already broken through to the third level of Heavenly Dipper, and all 4 of his mandates were at the transformation boundary of the second level. His state of heart was also sufficient, and he could faintly sense that he wasn't too far away from the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper. Although cultivation was boring, as long as one's heart was set on it, no matter how boring it was, one would still be able to maintain the passion to strive for it. Although the old man had departed, he didn't leave the area completely. He went to a faraway place and sat cross-legged on a snowy mountain. Qin Wentian's every action was seen by him. This old man originally had something to do and passed by here. "Who would have thought that I would meet a bastard like you? Ignorant, arrogant, and infuriating. I really want to see how capable you are." The white-haired old man seemed to be extremely depressed as he mumbled to himself. The little boy behind him didn't say anything, yet he was depressed in his heart as well. That fellow was really... How many people dreamed of entering the ancestors' tutelage? Yet he actually rejected it. The ancestor's personality was eccentric. Sometimes he would be calm and steady, and sometimes he would be as mischievous as a youth. He would do whatever he wanted, disregarding the opinions of others. But today he was actually offended by a junior. He must be feeling extremely depressed in his heart. When had he ever been rejected by anyone before? He sat there for a full 30 days. The old man saw many things that he couldn't see in the past. It seemed to be an extremely boring thing, but the old man could sit there quietly for 30 days. In the past 30 days he saw the human and demonic beast companions helping each other in times of hardship. That kind of affection could be seen from their smiles. He also saw a kind of protectiveness. The girl seemed to be cultivating, but her attention was often on Qin Wentian. This kind of protectiveness surprised him. Who was this boy? How could he be worthy of such a beautiful woman's attention? He saw a kind of persistence, a kind of obsession. Every strike of the halberd, every sword, and every palm contained perseverance. It was as if he would never feel tired, never feel dull, and always be full of vigor. Every time he failed to break through to the next realm, he did not give up. Instead, he was cautious and determined to start all over again. He didn't know who this young man was, or what he had experienced, but his character and persistence gradually made the old man's gaze turn solemn. The old man had seen countless people in his life. When he judged people, he had never only judged them based on their talent. On the contrary, when he told Qin Wentian that in this world, strength reigns supreme, he was also probing Qin Wentian. He wanted to see Qin Wentian's reaction. In truth, although Qin Wentian had angered him, he wasn't angry at all, because Qin Wentian's words were in line with his personality. If not, no matter how high Qin Wentian's talent was, he wouldn't waste any more time here. The reason why he stayed was because he wanted to see clearly. During this 1 month, although the things that happened there were simple, it caused him to be extremely moved. For a person to cultivate an innate technique, practicing it once, 10 times, or 100 times wasn't considered much. Practicing it 1,000 times could be considered as hard work. But if one didn't want to stop practicing it 10,000 times, or even 100,000 times, just to perfect a single halberd strike with such a stubborn heart in addition to his talent, it would be extremely difficult for him to not become a towering figure. Although the words of the young man were arrogant, they weren't fake. He used his own hard work and talent to support his arrogance. This young man has great potential, the old man murmured. After which, he closed his eyes and sank into a state of absolute silence. In a place extremely far away from Xianqing City, there was a region where experts were as common as the clouds. And in this region there was a hegemon named the Royal Sacred Sect. The Royal Sacred Sect had been established for countless years, and it controlled the 9 great sects, 3 empires, as well as a boundlessly vast territory. The geniuses of these powers would constantly be sent into the Royal Sacred Sect, and the various factions would compete with each other to distinguish themselves, gradually revealing their brilliance and becoming the leaders of the various factions in the Royal Sacred Sect. The Royal Sacred Sect that encompassed the various factions, how glorious and powerful was it? It was simply unimaginable. However, after countless years of development, the various factions of the Royal Sacred Sect were actually closely related to the 9 great sects and the 3 great royal cities. The 9 sects and 3 empires were all vassals to the various factions of the Royal Sacred Sect. The Battle Sword Sect was the most unique among the 9 sections. The number of people in this sect was the lowest, and their numbers couldn't even be compared to Granshang and Granzhou. Hence, there was a saying that the Battle Sword Sect was the weakest among the 9 sections. However, no one dared to look down on the Battle Sword Sect. Although the Battle Sword Sect had the lowest number of members every few years, there would always be a peerless genius emerging from the Battle Sword Sect. Not only that, the personalities of the people in the Battle Sword Sect were all different from the rest. They were arrogant and unyielding, wielding their swords to conquer the world. At this moment within the Battle Sword Sect, although there weren't many people in the Battle Sword Sect, anyone who stepped into this place would definitely be a dazzling character that could dazzle an entire region. However, at this moment, several powerful characters of the Battle Sword Sect had solemn expressions on their faces as they walked in the direction of a great hall. The auras of this group of people were all extraordinary. Any random one of them was an extremely outstanding character. Their eyes shone with a bright light as they stepped into the great hall. Expressions of respect could be seen on their faces as they lowered their heads slightly. It was as though the object in front of them was an extremely precious treasure. But in reality there was only a statue there. However, this statue was glowing with a faint light, as though it was a living creature. Master has manifested his will. I wonder what instructions do you have for me? The person in the lead had an extraordinary demeanor, akin to a sharp sword. Despite facing the statue, he was still respectful as he asked. The statue in front of him was none other than his master. His master had long since joined the royal sacred sect and was currently roaming the world. Normally, it would be very difficult to meet him. Even for him, it had been many years since he last saw his master. When his master manifested his will, it would usually be for extremely important matters. But this time around, it was unknown why his master manifested his will. A bright light shone from the statue as a projection appeared in front of everyone. Within it, the silhouette of Qin Wentian could be seen. This young man is currently cultivating in the heavenly mountain range outside Xianqing City. I want him to grow up in the battle sword sect, and in the future when the royal sacred sect recruits disciples, I want him to enter the royal sacred sect. The voice of the statue was solemn, causing the gazes of everyone to be fixated on the silhouette in the projection as they silently committed this person to memory. We obey Master's orders. The person in the lead bowed to the statue, agreeing to this matter. Remember, this matter is extremely important, you have to treat it seriously. The statue spoke again, his words causing the hearts of everyone to be filled with shock. They all knew what sort of character that old man was, yet he was actually so concerned about a young man. From this, one could see how important this young man was. Right? The person in the lead was none other than the current sect leader of the battle sword sect. He nodded his head once more as he spoke. I will personally oversee this matter. I will definitely accomplish it. In addition, the commotion must be as great as possible, and at the same time, don't let him know that this is my command. It's best if he can make his own decision. The statue spoke again. The sect leader of the battle sword sect nodded his head once more. Okay, I'm leaving. As the sound of the voice faded, the statue dimmed, causing the eyes of everyone to gleam with sharpness. This was especially so for the sect leader of the battle sword sect. A strange look flashed in his eyes. His master didn't even say a single word more, all for the sake of a young man. An instant later, the battle sword sect leader brought his men out of the Great Hall and issued an order to inform the 9 great sects as well as the Granshang Empire that their battle sword sect was going to recruit disciples in Xianqing City. As this order was sent out, the entire battle sword sect was shaken. This was the first time their battle sword sect was recruiting disciples outside of their sect. In the past, it had always been others who were recruited by the battle sword sect. There was no other reason other than because the battle sword sect was the sect with the most freedom, the most unbridled and frivolous among the 9 great sections. Not only that, the location was set to be one of the royal cities of Granshang Empire, Xianqing City. If this news were to circulate out, it was unknown how great of a commotion it would cause. They were all extremely curious as to what was going on with their sect leader. Why would he issue such a ridiculous order? However, since this was a direct order from their sect leader, they could only ensure that it was carried out strictly. At this moment, Qin Wentian had no idea that an intense storm was about to erupt because of him in Xianqing City. When the news spread to Xianqing City, no one would have guessed that the source of everything was the white-robed young man who was cultivating in the heavenly mountain range. At this moment, Qin Wentian was frenziedly absorbing the astral energy in his body. His yuanfu and arterial pathways were churning, and his astral novas were humming. A towering might gushed forth from him, incomparably violent. Evidently, he was already on the verge of breaking through. This scene lasted for an entire half a day. Finally, a cracking sound rang out as Qin Wentian's bones and meridians began to move. His yuanfu revolved frenziedly as his astral novas grew even more resplendent. His cultivation base had already stepped into the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper. Opening his eyes, the white-robed young man had a satisfied smile on his face. The beautiful eyes of the female protector on the peak of the snowy mountain also gleamed with a bright light. From afar, in a place where Qin Wentian couldn't see, the old man stood up. His face was flushed red, as though he had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Bastard, do you think you can escape from this old man's palms? Let's see how much of a storm you can create. The old man laughed heartily, but soon after, his countenance changed. Damn, I seem to have delayed things for too long. After speaking, his silhouette transformed into a gust of wind, instantly departing the area, bringing the person behind him along with him. It was as though he had never appeared here before. Chapter 502. Qin Wentian naturally didn't know what the old man was doing. After his cultivation base broke through to the 4th level of Heavenly Dipper, he could clearly feel the changes in his body. He felt even stronger than before, and he couldn't wait for a battle to break out. Back then, the 6 great geniuses of Qianqing City who ganged up on him all had a cultivation base at the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper. If Qin Wentian were to face them now, Qin Wentian had absolute confidence that he would be able to suppress them all. I wonder how Purgatory's recovery is going. Qin Wentian's bloodline thrummed as it seethed with power. Instantly, a blood-colored light emanated from his body, transforming into a gigantic shadow. This shadow gradually solidified. It was none other than the Purgatory vermilion bird. Back then, in order to protect him, Purgatory had almost lost its life in that battle. Qin Wentian just so happened to sense the changes in his bloodline. Hence he decided to swallow Purgatory into his bloodline to recuperate. Right now, although Purgatory could already take form, it was still in a weakened state. It had yet to fully recover. When it saw Qin Wentian, it instantly let out a few long screeches as an expression of excitement flickered in its eyes. Qin Wentian was safe and sound. In fact, his aura had grown even stronger than before. Busy. Little rascal instantly leapt onto Purgatory's body. After which, it stretched out its paws and rubbed Purgatory's head as it spoke in a baby-like voice. Little fellow. Purgatory's flapping wings froze, its body unmoving. The hair on its forehead stood on end as its eyes darted about, as though it was stunned by the words little fellow, spoken by little rascal. Qin Wentian involuntarily laughed uproariously when he heard little rascal's voice. Little rascal's voice was so baby-like. Yet it was still rubbing Purgatory's head and calling it little fellow. This was completely imitating what he did to little rascal. Purgatory, rest well. Don't bother about little rascal. Qin Wentian smiled. Purgatory let out 2 screeches and nodded its head lightly. A moment later, the blood-colored light returned to Qin Wentian's body. Little rascal floated in the air, baring its fangs and claws at Qin Wentian. It stared at Qin Wentian with a look of disdain. Don't call me little rascal anymore. Talk to me again when you can speak more fluently. Qin Wentian laughed. After which, he walked up and pulled little rascal into his embrace. His silhouette flickered as he soared through the air. An instant later, he appeared before Qing and spoke. Qing, I'm going to make a trip to Qianqing City. Just act the same as before, don't show your face. Qing's beautiful eyes stared unblinkingly at Qin Wentian, only to see Qin Wentian smiling. Don't worry, I'll be careful. Don't forget, I can change my appearance. Although they managed to track me back then, they must have tracked the aura I left behind. Now my aura has long dissipated, and I've also changed my identity. Who would know that I'm Qin Wentian? In any case, even if I meet with danger, I'll flee immediately. Qing stared at Qin Wentian before lightly nodding her head. Also, help me take care of this little rascal. Qin Wentian patted little rascal on its head. Quickly transform into a puppy. Little rascal inclined its head and stared at Qin Wentian with an aggrieved expression on its face. After which its body transformed into a real puppy, and it leaped into Qing's embrace. Qing's hands trembled slightly, but she still gently hugged little rascal. Little rascal was very cooperative as it snuggled into her embrace, causing Qin Wentian to glare at it. What a lecherous fellow, I'll let you off lightly. Qin Wentian laughed, his words causing Qing to stare at him unblinkingly. I'm just casually saying it, Qing, just pretend you didn't hear it. Qin Wentian laughed awkwardly. After which, his silhouette flickered as he soared through the air. The heavenly mountain range was boundlessly vast, mysterious and unfathomable. Qin Wentian actually took 3 days before he exited the heavenly mountain range, arriving at the Qianqing City. Right now, it had already been several months since the treasure-seizing assembly of the heavenly mountain. The treasure-seizing assembly had already ended, and right now, there were only a few people left on the mountain peaks. Many of them were here to cultivate or to explore the depths of the heavenly mountain. Right now, Qin Wentian had already changed his appearance, but he was still as young as ever. He was clad in black and exuded a grave and stern aura, causing people to feel a sense of unapproachable pressure. His demeanor was completely different from before, and if he were to meet with people from the various major powers again, it would be impossible for them to recognize him. At this moment, Qin Wentian's eyes flickered as he stared in a certain direction. On the peak of a certain mountain peak, there was actually a silhouette of a maiden staring into the depths of the heavenly mountain, as though she was waiting for something. What caused Qin Wentian to be taken aback was that he was acquainted with this maiden. She was none other than Ji Shui, and after he obtained the constellation fruits, not only did she not bite the hand that fed her, she even wanted to help him. Sadly, her strength wasn't high enough, and if she were to help, she would only be courting death. Qin Wentian didn't blame Su Feng and Ji Shui for not helping him back then. He wasn't a cruel and unkind person, and in that situation if they acted it would be equivalent to courting death. If it was him in their shoes he wouldn't have acted either. After all, although he had saved them before, the relationship between them hadn't reached the point where they could go through life and death together. Although Su Feng had a cold exterior, his character wasn't bad. As for Ji Shui, she was more passionate and gentle. Although she wasn't as beautiful as Shangyu, Qin Wentian felt more comfortable looking at Ji Shui compared to Shangyu. Qin Wentian stepped out, and an instant later, he arrived at a location not far away from Ji Shui. Ji Shui turned her head to look at him as she asked, "Sir, did you come from the depths of the heavenly mountain range?" Qin Wentian nodded his head. Back then, a great battle occurred in the heavenly mountain range, and the various major powers of Qianqing City surrounded a young man. "Do you know of this matter?" Ji Shui couldn't help but to continue asking when she saw Qin Wentian nodding his head. "I know," Qin Wentian replied. "In that case, did you know of the ending of the battle when you were in the depths of the heavenly mountain range? It was rumored that the experts of the major powers all returned in defeat, but that young man's cultivation base was only at the 3rd level of Heavenly Dipper. How did he contend against them? Is he still alive now?" Ji Shui stared at Qin Wentian, causing Qin Wentian's heart to tremble. So it turned out that Ji Shui was waiting for news of him here? Qin Wentian turned his head back, staring straight at Ji Shui as he asked, "That battle, I personally witnessed it. I naturally know the ending. However, what relationship does that young man have with you? Why are you asking about the ending of the battle?" "I'm not too interested in the ending of the battle. I only want to know if that young man in white is still alive or not." Upon hearing Qin Wentian's words, Ji Shui's voice was filled with agitation. "That young man is a good friend of mine, he saved my life before. Hence I really want to know if he's still alive. Sir, please tell me. You've been staring at the heavenly mountain range from here, waiting for him to return?" A strange light flashed in Qin Wentian's eyes. He didn't expect that Ji Shui would care so much about his life and death. Ji Shui shook her head. "I only come here once a day, waiting for 4 hours to see if I can hear any news of him. He's still alive." Qin Wentian faintly spoke, his words causing Ji Shui's eyes to flash with a bright light. After which, she bowed to Qin Wentian. "Many thanks. May I know your surname?" "Qin." Qin Wentian's voice caused Ji Shui's gaze to freeze. Surname Qin, why were they so similar? However, the demeanor they exuded was completely different. Upon seeing Ji Shui's countenance, Qin Wentian's heart calmed down. Even if he said that his surname was Qin, Ji Shui wouldn't even dare to think about it. Naturally, no one would be able to recognize him. What a pity, if he was still alive, the 9 great sects would be recruiting disciples in the Qianqing City. Such a matter is unprecedented in the history of the Qianqing City. Given his talent, he would definitely be able to pass the inner disciple test of the Qinghua Mountains and become a true disciple of the Qinghua Mountains. At that time, why would he need to fear the major powers of the Qianqing City? Ji Shui mumbled in a low voice. Qin Wentian's heart trembled as he asked, "The 9 great sects you speak of, are you referring to the 9 great sects under the Royal Sacred Sect?" "They have already arrived in the Qianqing City." Ji Shui stared at Qin Wentian as she smiled. "Brother Qin, if you are interested, you can give it a try. This is the first time something like this has happened in the Qianqing City. In that case, all the geniuses from the major powers of the Qianqing City would all go there to give it a try?" A cold light flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes. Naturally, it's rumored that this matter was initiated by the Battle Sword Sect. The Battle Sword Sect has a legacy of tens of thousands of years, and has never recruited disciples outside of their sect. Although the number of people in the Battle Sword Sect is small, there's a saying in the Royal Sacred region, joining the Battle Sword Sect is equivalent to joining the Royal Sacred Sect. This time around I have no idea why the Battle Sword sect would come to the Xian King city. Also, I heard that after the Battle Sword sect issued the order within a single day, they already sent out experts to Granshang. This speed is simply too shocking. In addition, those from the other major powers all thought that the Battle Sword sect was planning something big and hence, they all came here to recruit disciples as well. It seems like they are planning to clash with the Battle Sword sect. In just a short few days, the Xian King city was already filled with experts from all over Granshang. I can't help but say that this matter is very strange. Ji Shui spoke in a low voice. She naturally didn't understand. Also, the secrets between the major powers wouldn't be made public. She would never have imagined that the person in front of her was none other than the person she was paying attention to. Many thanks. Qin Wentian naturally wouldn't acknowledge Ji Shui. What he wanted to do was extremely dangerous to himself. He naturally wouldn't implicate others. His silhouette flickered as he soared through the air, entering the Xian King city. After entering the Xian King city, the news that Qin Wentian heard the most was regarding the arrival of the 9 great sections. The 9 great sects were powers on the same level as the Granshang Empire. One could very well imagine how powerful they were. Because of this, the royal clan of Granshang personally came to Xian King city and was currently residing in the King Manor. During these few days, regardless of whether Qin Wentian was in an inn, or even on the streets, the topic of discussion was always about the 9 great sections. From this, one could very well imagine how intense the repercussions of this matter were. And right now, the 9 great sects were already preparing to recruit disciples in the central region of the Xian King city. As for the 9 great sects, the one that Qin Wentian heard the most was none other than the Battle Sword sect. This Battle Sword sect was extremely legendary. Back then, it was founded by an incomparably powerful sword cultivator. This sword cultivator was a legendary character akin to a sword immortal. When he was young, he roamed the world with a sword in his hands, acting chivalrously, unrestrained and carefree. After the founding of the Battle Sword sect, the philosophy of the sect was one of freedom, unrestrained and unrestrained. Not only that, they didn't accept people with good talent. In fact, there were many talented geniuses who wanted to join the Battle Sword sect but were all rejected. Hence, the Battle Sword sect could be said to be the most difficult sect to join. And because of this, the Battle Sword sect had the least number of people, and their overall strength was the weakest among the 9 great sections. However, the Battle Sword sect always followed their own rules, never changing the philosophy of the sect. The disciples of the Battle Sword sect had the greatest amount of freedom, and even if they wanted to leave the sect, no one would care. But contrary to everyone's expectations, the disciples of the Battle Sword sect were very united when they were outside, and their relationships were very good. Although the overall strength of the Battle Sword sect was the weakest out of the 9 great sects because they had too few people, in terms of individual strength, there wasn't a single sect that dared to say that they were stronger than the Battle Sword sect. Joining the Battle Sword sect was equivalent to joining the Royal Sacred sect. In fact, because the members of the Battle Sword sect were too unique, there were many disciples who didn't even want to join the Royal Sacred sect. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.